before we start, I just want to say thank you guys for having me in your lovely Discord server. Um, Only been around for a little bit now, so I'm still getting the hang of things here, but very excited to have this conversation. So I hope it's very productive.
All right, so
Cool. Yeah.
it seems a bit
Cool,
slightly awkward.
We are the best.
Fine, whatever.
This goes on YouTube. The first minute is just us laughing.
All right,
Amazing.
anyone right now can start like Hezrock, your speech, or Binary Palpatine, your complaints, or Scorn Boy, your complaints or questions.
I don't have any questions. Like I'm just here to like critique, like fucking make fun of other people's suggestions.
What?
All
right, well, Scorn's gone.
I'm kidding. Maybe.
Well, so who's going first? Who's going first?
Complete silence. I swear to God.
Well, I guess I have to make my
Hezrock should
suggestion.
go first. I think
have
Hezrock
my
should go
suggestion to give.
Well, I should go first. Well, is Scorn throwing me under the bus right now?
Yes, I am.
I think Binary should go first. Yeah,
I got an important suggestion. So I've always been thinking, man, player stations would be cool, but every time we try to do them, it doesn't happen. They just don't happen. So I was thinking, what if we did player stations, but like simplified so it actually gets added to the game, and then we can add to it over time.
That's a very good suggestion. So are we starting there?
Sure. Yeah. Stations.
Okay, because
stations.
Was Binary. Was that Binary speaking as well?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Just want to make sure. So I'm taking notes on my end, so I want to make sure that I'm attributing them to the correct person. So you're saying a simplified system for stations.
Actually, I do like this idea. Hey, actually, Binary, remember?
But like what? Well,
hold on. Binary, remember back in the day, real quick, the outpost idea of like little fucking tiny stations out in wild that you could just put like a fucking tiny little refinery station or like a manufacturing station that you could just put out in wild and just leave there. Remember that initial concept from a while ago?
Yeah, I do remember that.
Like, why don't we just do like some shit like that? Would be awesome.
Yeah.
So, just to kind of bounce back to Binary for a second, in your mind, what features would a station like this have?
Well, I feel like the best way to make it so it doesn't really mess up the game balance is having it so it has like local storage, so you can store things there. You can refine materials, maybe build some ships, but there might be some limitations, like you can't make a destroyer or something like that. There are reasons to go back to Citadel.
I don't think they would make. I don't think they should be able to make ships. I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah,
I think that should be like for actual stations.
That's valid.
I think maybe. I also, I think a good idea would also be to not let people land in them. I think having a situation like a spice platform, where you actually access it from the outside, that could be interesting.
That would be interesting.
What other features are you thinking for this Binary? Besides, because you've mentioned local storage and industrial capabilities. What about like? Do you envision anything on the PvP side of things? Do you envision anything for factions? Like, really flesh it out. I want to make sure that we kind of like cover as much as we can, so that way we get the most out of this conversation. Because I genuinely.
One of the original reasons that the stations didn't come out is because we were super worried that every time a faction decided, I'm going to go destroy a station, it would crash the game and everything would suck. So I think that still applies. If the game gets a little bigger, we're going to get back to the scale where we're just crashing servers whenever we fight. So that problem still exists. I think there should be a less direct way to destroy these stations. We can have more.
Yeah. Okay. A less direct way. So not like a, because like, don't get me wrong. If we did do a station system, I for me personally, I would love it if down the line, once Roblox is able to accommodate it a bit better, we could add mechanics like siege mechanics, because I know
Yeah.
a lot of people like clamor for I want to be able to attack it, I want to be able to destroy it, I want to be able to screw with other factions and ruin their day. Like we hear that all the time, right? So I'm just like, yeah, totally. It sounds awesome. Now, in terms of what Keth has told me, the first iteration had a lot of technical limitations. The second one that we did during Accelerator, that was overly ambitious in the sense that we had too much clutter in I guess in the realm of what we wanted them to be. A lot of people mockingly called it, was it Tycoon? They were like Tycoon simulators or
Yeah,
whatever.
that's what the
I was
big
like,
complaint
okay,
was.
like yeah, I get it. It makes sense that they would see it that way, but I do like your idea of indirectly screwing with the station in ways, because if we can't have that like that siege, then what is the alternative? So an indirect PvP solution. That's good. That's good. You were talking about like capacity in terms of like who can be on your station. Do you
That
want
was
it like
Scorn.
I
I
guess
think that was Scorn.
Wait, what?
oh that was Scorn? Okay,
You,
so
you, you were
Scorn.
talking about how like you wouldn't necessarily land on it, but
No, you wouldn't land on it. I was thinking of it kind of like a spice platform, or maybe something like an FO where you can't switch your ship to keep it to keep that wild aspect there. At least for initial stations or whatever.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So like if this was an outpost situation, like are you saying it wouldn't be something you can necessarily fly into?
Yeah, I just think that it would be good to have like a like a cache or something, like a random storage out in wild that you can just access from the outside, then quickly just go back to whatever you were doing.
Okay, that's an interesting idea. I'll write that down anyway because I think that is really interesting. I don't think that's ever been brought up before.
It has actually. It was in initial development with the first iteration of stations.
Oh, you know what? That was before my time. So it hasn't been brought up.
Respect your elder, bitch.
All right.
Anyways.
Wait,
So binary.
it's just a mobile.
What?
Just a mobile storage.
No, not mobile storage. It would be immobile. You fucking.
Yeah, but it's just a wild
sorry,
storage.
I just want to bounce back to binary for a second. Is there anything else you wanted to mention during your time slot there, binary? Because we still got plenty of time.
That was the main thing I wanted to talk about. Unless you guys want to hear about my recent coding project.
No.
Trying to find new incredible ways to break the game.
What is it that they say?
I mean, if it's cool, you can share it.
I mean, I could like find a bunch of people who can break it, like renaming and like other people.
Scorn always finds a way.
Yeah, I've said my piece.
Was it they say I yield my time or whatever to the next person?
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Yeah.
So has Rocky going next?
Yeah. Okay. So my concerns are not really with whatever stations you guys are talking about. Since I saw player faction improvements, I was thinking about feedback with regards to how we bring player factions back to life. And
Get rid of
exploring...
No insurance. Get rid of insurance.
Hey, shut the fuck up.
One at a time, please, just so I can make sure that the notes are accurate.
And exploring why player factions have been dying, because I've seen a few videos which have been pretty well made, explaining why major player factions die.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I have a unique point of view because I am one of the few dev team members who also lead, a semi-active faction, albeit not the most active faction. So the problem I feel right now with development in Starscape is that there is no set general direction of the game, and as a dev team member, like no offense or anything, but like I have no clue where we're going in terms of development. I don't see a plan or really like what we're going to do after this update or the next update. Because I feel like we need clarity, or even in terms of like the community, we need clarity because we need to know what's coming, or we want to know what's coming, so we have some hope. Because right now, I feel like the community is far too disjointed from the development team and the people behind planning of these new updates. Because I'm gonna be honest, I don't know who decided we're going to do relays. Like, I don't remember having a big discussion about it. It just came out of nowhere. We're doing relays now. We're doing relays, right?
Okay.
If there was, I mean, if you have something to say, I have a lot more to go over. So
yeah, if you don't mind, of course,
Go
'cause
ahead,
I
go
want
ahead.
to make sure that I can answer. So let's talk about community transparency, because that is something I can really speak to right now. I think community transparency is really on the fritz at the moment. I very recently, like I'm talking last month, Keth and I got together and we discussed solutions as to what we can do to take that humongous gap between the community and the lead developers and close it. Um, and one of the solutions, or I guess one of the broader solutions, is to kind of expand the dev blog to incorporate more video content again, as well as conducting more live streams that we can engage directly with the community in. Because we do see that it is a problem. I personally I like reading the suggestions. They can get overwhelming when you have such a large community, but I do compile the ones that I can through the help of some of the moderators. By the way, shout out to people like Racketeer who send them my way, because it is important that we continue to read and engage with that. Now, obviously, these strategies haven't yet been implemented. However, I want to implement them this month. That is the ideal. And this will be in the form of generally monthly. I would like to do monthly, showcases that say, what we're working on and what's coming up in the broader timeline. So that way people have a really solid frame of reference, and then we will just translate them over to the dev blog in a written form. And I'm also going to be taking ownership of the, what is it called? Sorry, the name just escaped me for a second there. It is the roadmap. Yeah, the word just lost me for a moment, but I'm going to be taking control of the roadmap and making sure that it's constantly updated as we move forward with a lot of these new plans. But I want to make sure that not just like the core dev team, obviously it's important that you guys know the plan, but I think everyone should know the plan with, of course, some limitations, because we do want to continue bringing at least a little surprise every now and then to keep people engaged. But for the most part, I want to be transparent with all the big features and say exactly what's coming up. Um, I hope that addresses a couple of the concerns that you have. If it doesn't, feel free to rebuttal or anything like that. I'm happy to make this a conversation.
So what features are coming?
Whoa, what was that?
What features are coming?
Scorn just wants to get to the point. Scorn.
So sorry. Ask that again because you cut out.
What features are coming?
Those will be announced when I post the first video, probably next week.
Fair enough.
So, yeah.
Which is a great thing to hear from critique for most people here, because as part of the community and really hearing from the community, it feels like what we want is not heard of, right? So, which leads me to the next problem of the game missing an actual direction of where we're going. Because right now, like I said earlier, I don't know who's making these decisions on what update we should have next. And certainly, I personally feel that the community needs to take more involvement on where the game is going, because we can see the game has been on a decline for the passing time. Because with all due respect, these updates are just not what the community wants, and I don't know why we have them, quite frankly. For instance, like the insurance update, I understand Keth wanted to try them, but I really implore that he changes his mind on his development model, because if we aren't heard of, if our opinions aren't heard and implemented, then like, what's the point of playing? Because right now it feels like we're playing on a personal project. Whatever the devs want, we have to deal with, right? I'm sure. I'm sure warp relays are going to help with the game, but were they a priority over other activities that could help with player retention? Not really. It makes our life easier in the game, but it doesn't. It's not like a crucial part of the game that's going to help with like player retention that we should be focusing on. Which is like, I'm slightly concerned about where the direction and the focus of the game is, because we can have many like different events or updates we can add. For example, like events in WoW, like drone incursions, supply drops, whatever. We can do those stuff, and more players will play. They're also going to be equally encouraged to go into Wild. So I just wish that more of the community is involved in the decision making of what updates we're going to pursue, because I just don't know where these updates are coming from and how they will benefit us in the long term. Not just us as players, but as a game, the community.
If I may answer that as well, I totally agree. I think we're in a very unique position, because when I was growing up, if I wanted a game and I wanted to purchase a game, I would purchase the finished game. We now live in a time where active development is something that it's a whole community thing, right? And if we're gonna do that, then by that rationale, we should also engage the community on the updates that we're doing. So I am in full agreement with you. I think we definitely need to hear what the community has to say in terms of priorities and what updates specifically should come to the game. I've been listening to a lot of feedback and criticism regarding insurance, and I can only say that I agree with pretty much most of it. And it's something that has been an ongoing discussion with Keth and myself. Is how do we fix that system? Whether it's a complete overhaul, a complete retraction. We haven't fully committed to anything, but we have almost reached a solution. So I'm hoping that once we can introduce that should help with a lot of the resource sink issues and just the general PvP issues that have arisen since we implemented it. I like Starscape being a bit more hardcore. It's pretty rewarding in my opinion. So yeah, I'm totally with you. I think that is definitely very important. Another thing that I want to just tack on as well is that while we do recognize the community's say in a lot of the updates, I think the problem here seems to be that our ability to implement things is hindered by having Keth be the sole arbiter of being able to put things into the game. So one of the things that we probably need to address behind the scenes is how can we expedite that process, and how can we make it so that Keth is not like the onus is not all on him. How do we make that more collaborative? And that is something that we have also discussed in order to really speed up those updates and get things out on a much more on a less Keth standard time and more of a everyone else's time frame, because I've seen that thrown around a lot as well. So yeah, we are definitely working on a lot of those issues.
Right. Yeah.
Can I add something real quick?
Yeah.
So just for starters, the main issue with Starscape right now is the lack of players. And you can complain about any updates you want that you may think are negative to the game, but realistically, if there were more players playing the game like there were a year or two ago, the game would be 20 times more fun than it was, just because of the new updates. But the new updates aren't doing anything to retain players or regain previous players or take in more players long term and not just hopping on Starscape, having a look at some fancy warp highways and logging off again. The updates, all the updates I've seen in the last few years of me watching have just been like, ever since Faction Warfare, there's been nothing that is going to bring the declining player rate up. It's all quality of life changes. And for me, if Starscape has no life right now, which I think it does, the quality can't change.
Mm-hmm.
That I don't understand. I know. Just give me a sec. Sure. Everyone's talking about active development, but the game has been in quote unquote active development for like 3 years now, and it has not got any better. It's been getting worse. So if the game is going to save itself, something has to change.
Didn't he literally just talk about that? Like he literally just talked about it.
I know, which is why I'm addressing it, retard.
Well, let's talk about player retention for a second, because like that is something that can actually be very easily improved, and there are obviously there's no one solution. So let me actually preface this. There is no one singular solution that we can like add as an update to the game and magically fix the game. I think we all know this, but if we want to talk about, hopefully we all know this. If we want, you're not fully wrong about the insurance. I'll give you that. But if we want to, add things that are useful for player retention, here's one thing I want to bring up. I've been talking to Keth about this because we have the math to prove it, that we have a significant drop off of players in the tutorial of the game, because it is aimless once they finish it, or it's just not attention grabbing enough. We have a really, really horrendous onboarding experience for the game.
Well, okay.
It is. Oh, one second. It is super unfriendly to new players, and I think there's a lot we could do to not only improve the tutorial itself, but make it so it actually drives interest into a lot of the core features of the game that really, the community is based upon. Things like faction warfare are integral, but there isn't really a streamlined process for the player to get from joining to joining a faction. It's so muddled with all this minutia that it's virtually it's hindering factions first and foremost, but more so it just makes the game very unappealing to the average player. We're losing a sizable base of people solely because we are just not investing enough effort in the onboarding. And then, of course, you have all of the actual gameplay issues that follow suit. But, you have to start somewhere. And if we're going to start somewhere when it comes to player retention, I think improving the onboarding experience in tandem with fixing a lot of the underlying game loop issues is the immediate priority. And I'm hoping that we can start to address that a little bit more. Because so far, I've only been at this for like a month and a half now. It's definitely a huge priority for me.
Okay, so I just have a few things to say, if you don't mind. With regards to the player retention dropping off with the start of the game, I completely understand. You have to fix that, but I feel like it can also be attributed to players joining the game and then realizing, okay, this game is just not for me, because this is, ultimately a hardcore game. So it should not be overly the focus of what we're doing, because with or without that drop, right, we're still going to be able to obtain 400 or even 600 concurrent players with the proper, things we can do in game. So I quite actually think that the tutorial wasn't, like, a tutorial is a priority, but it is not a priority over the things we do in game and the in-game activities that we can engage in. And furthermore, we appreciate that you're giving your time to talk with community and etc. and bringing it back to Keth. But what I wanted to say is that personally, I feel that Keth needs to be talking to more of us, rather than just one person bringing up the views of the community, because everyone has different perspectives of what the community is trying to say, and everyone talks to different people, and like there's so many opinions out there, like with all due respect, that you might not be able to capture that other people can.
It is difficult to get every single voice, I will admit. But I should also clarify that my role, I initially started with graphics and, doing lore related stuff. God, I said the L word. Please don't spam the chat. However, I think my role has now evolved in more of a, a more community driven role. I'm moving away from the graphics and moving towards something that will help, build a better relationship between everyone. I agree, Keth can totally have a better communication with the community. Don't think Keth should have the majority of that responsibility, because if that ends up being the case, it'll massively hinder development.
Right, I agree with you.
I think my priority is to make sure that the communication with Keth is meaningful, as opposed to just more often. I think if it's meaningful each time that it happens, and you can actually, have proper takeaways from it, and people feel like they're heard after that interaction, that is a lot better than just having him type up dev blogs and often forget to update, the community on his personal, like, day-to-day happenings that might be impeding development. It's really difficult for him to communicate right now, especially with a lot of the real life situations that are, kind of holding him back from being a bit more transparent. So my hope is that I can take a bit of that off of his plate so he can focus more on development, and then I can be a more direct line of communication, and then we can have more events with him and actually, have him more engaged on his part.
Right, I completely agree with you that we need, more community engagement, but not everyone, because, it gets tiring for him. But what I'm trying to say is that we need more lines of direct communications to Keth. For example, like a committee of like 6 to 8 players that engage with the community and know what they're doing in game, and know how the community feels, because just having that one line of communication is just not enough. Keth needs to hear from more of a small group that takes information from the community, which I feel is just missing. Like, I understand that you're trying your best, especially since you're moving from a new role, and
Hey, can I intervene real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
We've already like talked about this like a while ago, but can we circle back to the original part of this conversation where it was how new players quit after the tutorial. So here's my opinion on that take. I don't think we should change the tutorial. I think that it's a good way to weed out the players who need their handheld, and I think that it should allow for. I think it should allow for players to understand that afterwards it's up to them. They figure out what the fuck they're doing, and the game's not going to hold their hands. Which is another reason why I don't want insurance.
Right, I agree. Especially,
but here's the thing.
We can see that the culture of the game has shifted after insurance, because
if
you look in chat, right? We never had that many beggars back then, right? Like, everyone's begging in 2022. Literally. You never see that in 2020. Like, obviously the game, like the target audience of the game lately has just not been correct, and we really need to focus on the
actually, when
you have to consider something. That most people who play Roblox are going to be in that demographic of, like...
Yeah, but we're trying to appeal to the minority here.
Yeah, because
the cool minority.
But you're going against what you said earlier by
also, by the way,
because you said you wanted more concurrent players, but to get more players, you need to appeal to a wider demographic.
Yes.
Can we not achieve
Let's have an adoption center, baby! Adoption center! It'll work!
Okay.
Going in the Citadel!
Okay, wait. I'm
problem
conversation back to Rock, because I was engaging. Can we do Scorn after Rock is done? Finish.
Right. Both of you have like very valid points. Right? The platform
having
itself.
committees.
Are we going back to the committees discussion, or are we continuing?
I would like to hear you expand on the committee thing because, yeah.
Right. So
I thought it was a good idea.
Yeah. So like in the Starscape server, we used to have advisor roles, right? So I think we should actually expand on the advisor roles and change it so players who are active in the community should have the advisor role, and they know what they're doing, they know what they're talking about because they heard from the players, they play with the players, and they have the perspective of so many people, and they should be as a group coming up with something that they together should bring up to Keth, rather than Keth listening to a few individuals. And with the committee, we can have a very diverse group of players that can bring ideas up to Keth that reflects on what the community wants and can improve on what the game needs. So that's just my thought. If you want to say anything about that.
All I imagine.
No, Hey, hold on, Scorn. I just want to answer
gotcha.
that. I think that's a really strong idea. I like involving the community in more things. I think that is the natural progression. Our development process is having the community be more engaged. So I don't see. Yeah, I don't really have anything that I can critique, haha, on that idea. But all I can say is that strong solidarity. I absolutely agree. I think that something like that could be very beneficial. I think it's worth considering. So I will make a note of that. Absolutely, I will see. I guess my only follow-up question would be: would you want different committees for different facets of the game, or like one large committee with members who represent different facets of the game? Like, what are you envisioning?
Both can really work, though. I personally don't think we need multiple committees, like even just one general committee with players who do everything. So, for example, we have players like Ocean Tsunami who is heavily invested in the player economy, and then we have players like Scorn who are heavily invested in PvP, who can have their say. So it doesn't have to be like it doesn't have to be multiple committees. It just has to be diverse enough with a good amount of opinions without too many opinions. That's why we have the purge and the dev team. So just a solid group of players that covers enough of what we need to know. So maybe like 6 to 8 players is realistically enough.
Okay, well those are some great ideas that you brought up. I wrote them all down, and I think if there's time afterwards, we should try and discuss them again. But for now, just looking at the time, I would say let's pass this over to Scorn so that he can finally have.
I have a couple things.
Oh, let's go, buddy. Let's talk.
Okay, first thing. Okay, so actually, real quick on the committee idea. So we're not gonna just have 8 Kavani members, all from SJC, all in the same committee, right? Like we're gonna keep it pretty diverse this time, right?
The main history repeats itself.
We're not gonna.
With the committee idea is that you need to be able to cycle out the people appropriately as they grow inactive, as they
exactly.
That's my main issue. That's my main issue with that committee idea. It's going to be very hard to be able to properly cycle them out. And there may be like several mechanisms to it, but I can't really think of any off the top of my head which would be good at cycling players from.
That picks a random person in the server.
It should not be difficult to cycle players out of the committee if they clearly just don't play the game.
Look at the testing team. The testing team was supposed to be exactly this. Well, to an extent, it was supposed to be exactly this, where people are picked from the community who are.
And now it's all Kavani.
I mean, on top of that, a lot of people who were on the testing team became inactive. A lot of people who were on the testing team that didn't necessarily play the game. And we need to have an actual system in place for like cycling players out instead of just like 5 advisors who sit there for a year and suddenly they have very outdated views of the game, or suddenly They're just not really playing the game anymore, and we just have the same situation as we do now, where it feel like a lot of the time it feels like the developers don't play the game.
Well, tell that to the guy who took my tags the other day. Just kidding. But I'm so embarrassed.
I heard you play the game. It's just I'm just echoing what a lot of the community thinks.
Oh no, it's true. I don't blame people for thinking that at all. I'm not going to who killed me, by the way. But what I was going to say is on the note of the committee idea, it kind of leans toward well, okay, if we're going to cycle out like a committee, it then leads to, well, I guess at that point it's just democracy, which I know ritual, I know, but I think no, but that isn't necessarily the most unhealthy thing either. My proposal would be we have a lot of ideas for how we can improve community communication. I'm going to gradually implement them. Oh, I've already said that we're going to be ramping up the YouTube and the live streams to kind of like have that be a space for community to quite literally engage with us directly as Keth, Dandy, and myself, and then the occasional guest. But that could be a very good resource, and we're gonna add these gradually and see what channels work and what channels don't work in terms of lines of communication. I think it's going to be a bit of a process, but I want to try a lot of these things for sure.
Okay.
Scorin, do you have anything else to say on the committee thing?
Or no more on the committee. I was just But next thing I want to know is what measures are you taking on the exploiter issue?
Sorry, can you repeat that last?
The exploiter issue.
Exploiter issue? Yeah, that's a really annoying. I'm trying not to swear for the sake of professionalism. I'm gonna. It's a really.
I think I've burped like 7 times. I think it's not really professional.
Yeah, there's no more professional. You can swear all you want.
Critique is never finding a job after this is posted on YouTube, by the way. Sacrifice everything for us.
I think when it comes to the exploiters, that is kind of connected to the whole issue whereby a lot of the onus falls on Keth, and I wish that we had a better system. Now, I'm not as embedded in that facet of the game. So, like when it comes to anything that's a technical bug or anything like that, or just hostile exploiters, I'm not really the most qualified voice on that issue. So I'm actually going to open it to you, Scorn. Do you have any suggestions, or does anyone have any suggestions that they think might be productive in this case when it comes to dealing with exploiters?
I
honestly,
I was just curious what you guys were doing and if you guys were communicating about it clearly. But
we do talk about it. Okay, so yeah, we definitely do talk about it. I can assure you of that.
Fair enough. Okay.
How quickly we can tackle something,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, literally just yesterday, I made a suggestion to start banning exploiters. I mean, I understand that if we ban exploiters, then some people will say, we're just going to use alts. But at the moment, it just seems to community that we're not doing anything about exploiters. And, if Scorn brought this up, then, many others are going to be thinking the same way. So,
I mean, I would like to bring.
What does that mean?
Interesting. I would like to bring up an interesting idea: is that there's only really one person in Starscape who has the ban hammer.
Right, but we are.
But the thing is, this ties into an idea where there's not a lot of Keth does not exactly have a lot of trust in a lot of the people. No, he has a lot of trust in the people he works with, of course, but he doesn't have anyone he necessarily can rely on to be another dev or rely on to have a ban hammer. What do you say?
But a time should come that he lets go, right? I mean, look at the current admins. You see Star and Index. They've been here for I don't know how long, a year, 2 years. It's about time that he lets go. And some of us have been trying to convince him, and maybe Critique will have a easier time bringing this up to Cass. That yeah, I mean, he said something about it earlier today, so I'm not gonna.
So with the general principle for exploiters has always been that banning their account would make it harder to keep track of who's exploiting. Even with that system, though, it's taken Keth weeks to address people like Hysteria. So yeah, I think things definitely need to change and probably just go to the mass banning of exploiters at this point.
Yeah, like I personally feel we need to mass ban, or at least ban a shit ton of exploiters at the same time to create that psychological effect to scare people. Like, because people are encouraged to exploit, like not encouraged, but like they're like, okay, I'm not going to get banned for exploiting, so why not give it a shot? You stay in the gray area. So that's my thought. We need to ban people because people are just going to think if the devs aren't doing anything, then why not?
To argue against that, though,
if I can,
actually, Hatch, you go. Sorry.
Yeah. So to tack on to what everyone's saying about the bans. So like a year or two ago, the staff team was just something about patching the exploits instead of banning the people. So I assume that's what Ritual was referring to earlier when he said it was harder to track who was exploiting because it would be harder to patch the exploits. I think patching the exploits in general is like a temporary fix. It's like duct taping a window. The duct tape is eventually going to fail, and the window's eventually going to fall out, so it's better to just remove the problem entirely rather than find a temporary solution, because someone's eventually going to find a new exploit that circumvents the patch.
Yeah,
it's inevitable.
I mean, yeah, and there's exploits that we are not able to track. Like, you see the leaks of someone running a bot through the entire galaxy, pinging a server every time a Vexium anomaly is found. Like, it's very hard to counter stuff like that. So at some point, we just have to ban.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But do we want to give the ban hammer to more people?
Yes.
Yes. I mean, there are not.
Hey, so Critique right now has problems with his mic or connections. We should do an intermission for a minute until he fixes that.
Okay, because I got the main course up next.
Right.
Faction warfare.
Yes.
Faction warfare.
Me and Scorn have so much to say about this.
Me more than you. Fuck you.
I feel left out. Huh?
Alright, I think Critique has his mic back.
I want to talk more about economics and about the tutorial, because like the tutorial can be fixed to be a lot more engaging initially. Think of the first thing that comes to mind is something like Eve, on how it immediately just puts you like straight into like a mission. Like you're already in a ship, you're basically already in a mission, you're already engaged in faction warfare for Eve, and it already throws you through a whole bunch of stuff. So I'm thinking like something like that might be a lot better for.
To be honest, I quit after the Eve fucking tutorial because I didn't like it. It was
for a intro to the game. If you play later, that intro really does help for a lot of the game. So
yeah, I'd say that. Personally, I probably would not have gotten into Starscape if I didn't have a friend who already played it and was able to like guide me through all the basic grinding methods, all the how to make a lot of money compared to like Eve, where I had relatively minimal input. Like Eve, I was able to go through the tutorial and at least have a basic understanding of what was going on. In Starscape, I feel like if I were to just go into Starscape right now, I had no recollection of Starscape, how to play. I would probably get relatively lost very, very quickly. I'd probably there's so many times where I'm just out, where I'm just like flying around and I meet someone who's just been like grinding in a freaking Horizon, like mining Yukon, or not like a mining Horizon in secure space, and they've somehow got a Horizon through just mining in secure space all this time. There's so many of these cases where just people are doing things so terribly wrong, wasting so much of their time, and these are just the people who like didn't just like drop the game, who like stuck around to pass the tutorial but didn't have anyone to talk to. So many of these like instances of.
So
yeah, sorry, you go.
So basically, you want to rid the game of stupid players.
Well,
somehow, just the
I want to teach people. You don't necessarily teach you don't necessarily get rid of stupid players. You teach the stupid players how to be not so stupid. And there's better ways to do that than just
they're not stupid. They're dumb. There's a difference between stupid and dumb. Okay, so the difference between stupid and dumb is is you don't know any better. And you do it.
Dumb, I should say.
If stupid is you know better and you do it anyways. So it's just that those players don't know like how to do, what to do, and whatnot.
I should use the term dumb then. Yeah, you're right.
Sorry, can I just add on to the tutorial? So The issue with Starscape, and this has been one which has been going on for a year or two now. It's the learning curve is really high. So new player gets a Stratos, mines up a few Coralite, and the initial tutorials were you go into wild with a otter and you mine stuff, come back. That's if someone encounters a player in wild or they get blown up by a drone, that's they could feel really discouraged. So there should be a sort of starting element so that they have some ground to start from other than just basic starter ship that you can't really do anything with and isn't really a good starting platform for you.
So we give them a Radix to start
mining
with.
No, the
That's
ship
not
you
what I'm
start mining
saying.
with is not
So-
how you mine for the rest of the game. The Stratos is not how you mine for the rest of your entire Star.
You're supposed to go straight for one of the starting miners, and then you proceed from there.
Edgeworking.
But no, the tutorial has you go out into the Stratos, and like the first thing you do is mine incorrectly.
Yeah. Like
That's exactly.
And maybe in the tutorial it has you build an otter or a marlin.
Something like that.
Why
That'd
doesn't the
be
game just give you an otter? You know how like doesn't the
It
Galaxy
gives you 2,000.
tutorial
It gives you
give
2,000
a free
credits,
ship?
and you could buy one.
Well, maybe. Well, okay.
Well, you
maybe.
could buy one, but,
what if
like,
there's like
push
a
'em into
quest
it.
system? Like
No,
it
that's the
kind of
card.
like it kind of give you like a
quest.
direction in which to go. Like after you get an otter, it has a little progression bar. That your next mission to start with is to get a honey badger, and maybe it kind of like stops after that, and it lets them kind of figure out what they're doing. Although that would go under the idea of hand holding. So I'm not. I'm kind of in
Yeah,
between
you
on that
were
idea.
opposed to this half an hour.
I know,
ago.
but this like yeah, well, Zoomer just said a milestone system sounds kind of interesting, but I don't know.
I'm still pretty sure the current system has you sell to the NPC market.
Yeah, that too. That also is kind of shitty.
I think
But,
the
like-
tutorial should end with your enlistment in a faction.
Yeah,
And,
actually
it should-
not a bad idea.
and actually,
Nice
instead of
idea.
starting with Los Sentients, it should start with the Falcons. Oh yeah.
No. You enlist an
Uh-huh.
SJC. No, you
Oh,
enlist
you
an
enlisted
SJC.
like
Hold on, you could, I have
Alright,
an
let's
idea.
get
What
back
you
on
could
topic.
do is you try and guide them to, like, if you see like faction warfare, like let's say it's going entirely like one side, like let's say Licentian, they're basically winning the complete war. You have to try and push them to like either Cavani or Falcon, just like a little nudge, just by changing the numbers a little bit, and you can make it like proportional. So not like this, like they have to join, but it's just like kind of like if they were a random player, just hopping on and figuring out just the game, it could help kind of make faction warfare a lot more interesting by evening out the sides all the time.
Yeah, I understand. So, I mean, like a potential method. I saw this somewhere where it was there were these two things that were fighting, and you had to help out one side, that kind of thing. So that would sort of introduce them to that aspect of the game as a new player.
Oh, like so make the starting tutorial something like you're working with Corsac fighting a giant drone facility, something like
Or
that
a
in the tutorial.
cruiser.
Exactly.
So you
Users confirmed.
so you
web.
go into a
Okay.
planet, and then there's a Cavani, Licentia, and Feralcus all fighting, and then you have to help one of them, and whoever you help kill the other two is the one that you end up joining. That kind of thing.
Might get a
Critique
little
just
too
died.
hectic.
I don't know what happened.
That's why I'd say probably stick with Corsac. And
Yeah, so
versus
Critique
drones,
right now is
but we
having
actually
problems
have-
with his mic, so he won't be able to answer questions or give feedback. for,
Yeah,
like,
that's why I'm holding off on
3
the whole
minutes.
faction warfare shit.
Oh, and if
Yeah.
anyone leaves the channel, we're at 69 people listening. You better not.
I swear to God, how
No.
Leave the
rational
channel, leave the
now.
channel.
Everybody
There we
leave!
go.
Let's go! Yeah!
No. No.
Let's go!
No.
3 people just left.
Why did you
You're
mention
all-
And they're
it?
back! Let's go!
No.
I'm joining on my alt through this.
Alright, let's
This
wait
is like
for-
69. Come on, funny number.
Bring back
Well,
Bill.
we can't
Where's
really tell
Bill?
people to join.
Where's
Well, shit,
Bill?
I'm gonna go get
Um,
coffee. I'll be right back.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
just have an
Bill-
intermission until Critique comes back.
there's
What's your favorite color?
there is something I wanted to say really quick. It doesn't require Critique to be here. So, previously the advisor role was brought up a few times, and if you notice in the main server, that's been revised. We're not technically advisors. people like Arctic and I are really not playing the game, and Critique is a developer. So it's not like we're sitting here giving the sole direction of the game. We're really just more of like legacy members.
Okay, but what if everybody who's able to talk in this call right now becomes an advisor?
Absolutely not.
I mean, I think a committee could be a good idea, because right now you really just have the legacy people and the dev server, and then you have the contributors.
Well, a committee could come from like the Solar Link with the leaders and HRs there.
Nothing against Hatch though. What if Hatch is on the committee, and let's say he just gets bored of Starscape, stops playing? How do we get rid of him?
But you just get rid of him, remove his role.
Click the ban button.
Yeah, I mean,
who decides that he leaves though?
Me. I decide.
It'd probably have to be like Keth who decides that kind of thing, which means it'll never be decided on.
But now isn't that the same thing with the testing team?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's hard.
Would you rather
the fact that purge happened, the purge only happened because even Keth started getting annoyed by certain things.
But just keep in mind though, if we're in this situation where we need to go to Keth to remove a advisor because they're being inactive or whatever, like now we're in the same situation as we were in the testing team, where we just have a bunch of people who don't play the game, who may occasionally give input, but like now we have a bunch of people who don't play the game, who are sitting in the advisor role, and now in like a year we're going to be complaining about them that they don't play the game, but they're dictating what happens to Starscape.
Yeah, I'm going to have to disagree with that.
We need a better system than just
you can check
to remove them.
Their input. If their input is consistently the same and that or lame, then it's up to other advisors that can speak up and say, okay, this is kind of old.
Democracy.
Or alternatively, have half of the committee be changed every month. I mean, there are so many things you can do that.
Well, like the UN Security Council.
Well, we need to
probably sort of like that.
Like overnight.
Would you rather have the current advisor model? Like it makes no sense to continue the current advisor model instead of keeping what we have now, because we might not be able to switch, or how are we going to kick people out? Like having more people on the committee, regardless, is better than what we have now, and we can easily figure out how we can rotate people out of the committee. But it is the step we need to take right now is that Kef needs more input from more people. That's not just the same 3 people, right? Like I understand your
community though. It's just going to be like, but the committee is going to be the old testing team though. That's
okay. It doesn't have to be the old testing team.
It probably is though. That's the issue.
It probably is okay, but it doesn't have to be the inactive testing team, like team members. Like it's very clear that who plays the game a lot and who doesn't, right?
Yeah.
Like, but if you're in the testing team still, chances are you are still playing. And in the cases of the minority who doesn't play the game, then quite simply they aren't included in the committee. It's that simple. It's a 6 to 8 member committee. Like there are definitely more than 6 to 8 members, in the testing team that plays the game.
Hello.
Hello.
But here's my issue with that though. So we have this entire committee, and but now we're having the same situation where we had with the testing team, that maybe the committee has ideas which Kat doesn't agree with, or maybe the committee isn't necessarily, or like maybe the committee has a bunch of people who don't play the game anymore who Kath has to remove.
Like I said, we could have half of it removed every month and have new people get it. Like, the system is flexible.
But now we have a situation where we have 16 people trying to yell at Kath. So you need a
like I said, 6 to 8 people. And
6 to 8. Okay, now we have a situation where we have 68 people who have.
How do you have 6? I said 6 to 8.
I have a question real quick.
How did you get 68?
All right, guys.
I said 6 to 8. I said 6 to 8.
You okay?
You guys can't do math.
No,
I said 6 to 8. Oh my god.
Okay. Sorry. I gotta chime back in for a second. So sorry about that. My Mac decided to run updates mid call.
Of course.
Because that's awesome and super efficient, right? But I want to redirect this conversation back to me and Scorn, because I still owe him 10 minutes. So
let's go.
Let's get back on track. Sorry about that, everyone.
Sorry.
I want to know first of all, what your plan is with faction warfare, because I have a lot of suggestions that I would like to bring up with you.
I'd like to second that thought.
Why don't we just hear your suggestions? Because they're probably going to mesh well with whatever we have in mind.
Okay. Well, first of all, I think improved AI, especially for like the battleship, would be a really good thing, a really, really beneficial thing. And also, I know that back when I was in the testing team still, I elaborated on the fact that disruptors should remain disabled, right? I just want to make sure that that's still a thing, right? We're still not planning on adding those
like warp disruptors.
Yes, we're not adding those to.
No,
okay,
we need
making sure. Suck my dick. All right.
Okay. Hey, this will go on YouTube, Scorn. I told you about that.
Yeah, well, have you looked at my YouTube channel at all?
Yeah,
okay,
well,
anyways.
That's what's going on.
anyways.
Continue. Let's keep it on.
So after that, also, I was thinking there has to be some sort of, we've talked about this before as well. There has to be some sort of reward for defending systems. There has to be some sort of reward for maintaining systems. There has to be some reason to be the fucking biggest boy in the fucking galaxy, right? Like, you have to have a reason to do that stuff. Like, what incentives are you guys planning in terms of, it was a 20v20 battle in this one Sentient system, and we defended against the Falcons. Like, what do those defenders get? They can go attack. They can go straight to the fucking Falcon system and attack that, and then they get a little LP. Or what if the Sentients defend that? Like, what do you get from, or the Falcons defend that? Like, what do you get from defending? What are those like?
Are you in favor of a leaderboard system?
What does that have to do? Like, what does that have to do with anything?
No.
Listen.
Well, sorry, but in terms of like things like rewards, like having a leaderboard, do you think that would be an example of like a good reward for, engaging in PvP, like having your faction appear on like a very publicly viewable leaderboard? Like, is that something that might help? There's lots of things we can talk about. I'm just throwing out examples.
Not really. No, not really.
Let's talk about it. What do you see as a viable reward?
I think there should be. Dude, we had a whole conversation about this. We never really got into a conclusion. I'm not entirely sure, but we were thinking you could at least get some LP for somehow, from somehow detecting if a system was defended. Now, we never really discussed how, and I'm not entirely sure how. So I was wondering if you guys talked about it more. I was wondering if you guys have any ideas in terms of that.
Nope. Well, I mean, let's be honest. The gold standard for rewards when it comes to player faction warfare, and it's the one that gets talked about the most, is having capturable territory and having ownership over things, right? Like, that is the gold standard. Like, we've talked about things like localized resources that maybe are only accessible in certain regions that are capturable. Like, those are things that we've talked about. But like, beyond that, I think it is still an aspect of the game that needs a lot more conversation. I agree. It's kind of the purpose of this, to be honest with you, is, what else can we do in the interim? Because, like, let's be real, having capturable territory is a very, awesome goal to have. But there needs to be, like, rewards beyond that. Like, what else can we do? So, like, if you're willing, I would like to open up the floor to, like, everyone in this call right now, and can we actually, like, talk more about rewards? Because I would like to hear more ideas about rewards, because that, to me, if we can figure out a really solid rewards system that incentivizes, like, player faction PvP, that would be a great takeaway from this call for me.
Okay, wait, hold on. Well, actually, no, hold on. I noticed something wrong with your statement right there. You said player factions for faction warfare, right? For faction warfare, right? We're talking about faction warfare here?
Yeah. Like, but do you mean for, like,
faction? So, okay, faction warfare is not based on player factions. Player factions is unsecure and wild. Like, it's you're supposed to be fighting for your, like, NPC faction. You're
Right,
not.
glad we
It's
got
not
that
meant
cleared
to
up.
be. It's like, you know, it's not meant to be like all the solo faction combat. You know, it's meant to be larger fleets. You know, typically, you know, more variety in players. You know, a lack of, like, you know, not the ability to betray each other. You know, like that kind of that kind of shit. You know, like,
Okay,
so
so
it's
We still found a way.
I'm with you. I'm with you. I think
Mhm.
I was just a little bit confused there. So,
Sorry,
you're more specifically. Sorry, I'm gonna actually close the floor back to between me and Scorn for a sec. So you're more specifically referring to like the current like NPC capturable territory system. Is that
Yes.
where you're?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So okay. So on that premise, we have discussed solutions. You know, excluding, we already have like a leaderboard system for that. More or less having an like winning conditions is something that we've talked about, making it so you can actually, you know, strive towards a goal and get some kind of reward. It's the
Yes.
reward that we
This is good.
specifically
Yes, this is
have
good.
not
I like that.
determined yet.
Okay, I'm in the same situation. It's really hard to understand what would really work with the current FW. It just the FW system just needs to be reworked entirely. Like, it needs to be fucking, like, you know, dug out of the ground. You know, like just completely like meshed around again. Like, it just needs to be completely reworked. It's like, it's so flawed. Like, there has to be some better ways for, yeah, shit like that, pretty much.
Yeah.
It's just-
Okay. No, I'm totally with you. Okay. Sorry.
I have
I'm
no
sorry
idea how
for
to
the
even rework
confusion
it
there,
now.
but I'm glad we could flesh that out a bit. So, yeah. So we are really in the same boat then. It's like we know that we want to have features like an end game kind of mechanic for when you
Yes.
start that war, and what does it look like when you get to the end? Victory conditions. So I'm going to write in big bold letters, victory conditions. That needs to happen.
Wait,
What would victory look like in the case of
right? What does
NPC
that look
wars?
like?
It looks like what's happening right now, by the way, with your border.
You see
Just
the map
FYI.
right now, dude?
Yeah.
Scorn, I'm sorry that I don't want to attack orange dots on the map that I'm going to lose after 6
Well,
seconds.
that's a problem. That's what we're discussing. That's a problem. You need to want to do that.
Right, no, it's
Context, Hatton and Scorn are the two, or Lycentian and Frolkin leaders, respectively, or pretty much overall.
Well, Megas owns Frolkin
Megas in the
server.
call.
Hatcham
Megas in
owns
the
the
call.
Sentient, and I'm just one of the Frolkin peoples. You know.
I mean, so when we talk about victory conditions, right, and winning it, like, we do, obviously the easy answer is, oh, we just give out loyalty points. But I know that people want more than loyalty points, and I think there should be more than loyalty points. So, what is the more? So, like, are we talking economic rewards? Are we talking?
I have no idea about that.
I think economic.
You can purchase a ship with loyalty points.
What if you could do something with the loyalty points? Because it's just a number that goes up.
I really think you should be able to transfer loyalty points into credits, other than fucking buying holo projectors and then selling that shit. I mean, like
Okay.
So are we kind of like agreeing on a more like that loyalty points serve more functions than what they currently do?
They should
Like, is that-
definitely.
Okay, so expand
100%.
Like maybe you could. Here's something hypothetical I just came up with, like hiring NPC mercenaries to go with you into Wild.
Yes.
that could be interesting. That could be cool. That could be really cool, actually.
Yeah,
I like that.
Oh, dude, they're just gonna warp between planets and ditch you.
Thanks for the credits,
And
Adam.
then we'll never attack an HQ. Never attack an HQ. Oh, that's another thing. AI should be able to fucking attack an HQ. Why do they not do that?
Yes.
Why? Why?
Yeah, like trading in like loyalty points, and you can like get certain ships which you can deploy to regions, right? Being able to like you spend loyalty points on like 5 fighters, and then you click the region at a certain time, and then everyone can click that. Everyone can decide to send a force at the same time.
Right.
Yo, wait,
They'll
hold on,
mass
hold on.
fleet lives.
Hold on. What if admirals, like fucking people with, or like the highest rank in an NPC faction, right? It allows you to control like the fucking wandering fleets, or like the HQ fleets in a system, and it can like send them places.
Logically,
Or
Yeah,
issue
good
one,
one,
issue if there's an
Not
ult.
both ones.
The issue is if there's an ult, you like you grind up. You just get a bunch of loyalty items, and you grind up to admiral status. You can like, for instance, like constantly direct all of the all the licensing.
But what if it could be like it could be overruled by majority? Like if there's if there's one alt in like
we have 3 alts.
Hell, you make it 3 alts the fucking highest rank in a faction? It's not that easy, bro.
Not even
You don't even
Let's stay on the
Alright,
topic
guys.
of faction warfare.
We're on the topic of faction warfare.
Back to between Scorn and I here. So I took a lot of notes from that brief conversation period. Is there anything else that you want to discuss?
Oof, Mega, what else is there? Mega, anything else I'm forgetting?
It's not rewarding. Why would you want to do it?
Yeah.
Okay.
What incentive is there to go into orange dots other than making your imaginary LP number go up?
Yeah, I have a suggestion.
I mean, there's not like there's fleets to fight.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, there's no incentive to go defend. So,
if incentive wise, can we compromise with a system that goes like a certain rank gives you a certain amount of credits per week based on I'm not done, right? Based on the amount of territory it has, but you have to reach a certain amount of LP or systems captured that week, or you get demoted. And in order to compensate for people who are busy, then they can resign from the Navy and just lose 1 rank. That way, you have an incentive to fulfill your LP quota for that week, and then you receive your payment. It's sort of like getting paid in the army.
So you're thinking like more of an actual career kind of mechanic?
Yeah,
that would be cool as well. Actually, I like that idea a lot.
That's really cool. That is a really cool suggestion. Okay.
I'm reading the No Mic right now, and I'm just thinking, just turn FW into a RTS game.
Yes. I like that idea as well. I also love that idea. Yes.
Okay, I love that because I actually love RTS.
You know, funny thing, I actually there's actually a fleet battle between me and Hatch, and I was controlling my fleet like a fucking RTS game in a Paragon above them, and we actually annihilated them. Just FYI,
nice.
Just saying.
That kind of goes into like
or that happens regardless, Paragon or not.
True, you're right.
I mean, the fleet is one that you literally control, just like an RTS game. They respond to
that would be so cool.
It's just like I keep making, which people keep ignoring, is we need better ways to like mark out areas for people to go than just people shouting out in a voice channel. Being able to set waypoints, being able to set people like, oh, this group of people should go over to this visual indicator I just set. Having that kind of system, I feel like would be very crucial if we want to have more fleet, like more intricacy in fleet battles compared to just.
It would be a nice.
Yes.
It would be a nice squad rework, like doing that for squads.
A squad rework?
Like where squad leaders could ping locations and.
That would be cool. That would be interesting.
Right.
Yeah, it will open up greater tactical, actual strategy rather than just, okay, we're all going to huddle up, we're all going to have railguns, we're going to shoot the thing that comes nearest.
Just to bounce back. So, Scorn, like I said, is there anything else you want to bring up?
Honestly, I'm enjoying the conversation topic. I'm just kind of, at this point, adding on to the ideas being thrown around already. Honestly, I feel like I've said most of the things I want to say. Just generally, I think we just need to rework from from the ground up. Honestly, yeah.
All right.
Here's a second.
Guys, wait. I want to move on to the next individual person because I want to make sure everyone gets their time. Because we still have the questions from the actual chat that I want to get to as well.
This is gonna take forever.
Yeah. So let's move on. Who's next? Who wants to go next?
Me.
Okay. Who said me?
Patwig.
Okay, Patwig, hit me.
I'll make it real quick and simple. So I had just had 2 main things to talk about.
Okay.
We've already covered all the other stuff, but mainly just possibly adding a more engaging tutorial, such like the Eve tutorial, just thrown out there. I'm sure you do more looking into that, and we already talked a little bit.
Yeah, so I can actually, if I can speak to that, we are working on, and I've said this many times, so for anyone who hasn't heard, this will be a big but we are working on a more narratively driven tutorial to kind of like help with some of the lore and the world building aspects that I know.
Honestly, that sounds fine. Honestly, that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, because, having narrative is also a good driving purpose to finish the tutorial because we have a lot of people who drop off before they even. Have you seen the scary AI voice acting thing that exists now? It's kind of crazy.
I did see that.
Beth and I talked about it, but Dandy could literally voice everyone at this point. But we are looking at more of a narrative style tutorial that will kind of help people feel more engrossed in the actual world itself. So hopefully that answers at least the first thing when it comes to onboarding. What is your second topic?
My second topic is making. Okay, so you can go out in the wild, you can mine, but after I just want something that I can basically build like a structure out in wild, not like a player station. I'm not talking basically something where I can have basically or like a cargo deposit out in wild, and maybe make it something where it's an anomaly where other players can still find it and still destroy it, but just something like that where you can make a little stash of resources or whatever. Of course, it might be in a cargo form, but basically, you could stash 100 crates for the cost of a Corvette, and you got maybe periodically fuel it, maybe not, but something like cost of Corvette, stash 100 crates, something like that could be if for some people that would be very useful. It adds in actual logistics, more reason to actually go in wild and ability to actually stay out there. If you're going mining, it allows you to basically just mine, stash it, mine, stash it, and then eventually haul it out. So it adds in more roles. Also, it adds more trust, more, a lot more just reasons.
Interesting. Okay, so would that be just would I label this as player structures almost?
Yes.
Okay, cool. And would it be beyond deposits? Could it include things like mining platforms or any kind of thing, like gun platforms and shit like that? Or
potentially, but yeah, I was just kind of want to just at the very least just have something like that. Add on all the turrets or whatever later, and I just kind of to see it, or it's not all tied together. Have it be more just an individual thing, just oh, you dropped one turret here. That way, is you don't have to worry about it all working together. Try to make a giant thing to link them all together so they target the same thing. Just make a turret. You just deploy a turret. You can deploy it in any kind of scenario. So if I'm not sure if you ever played Foxhole, it's if you build a rifle garrison, great. You just you have a rifle garrison there, but it's just then how you put them all together eventually. Then how just having each work as their own individual part, and then it makes something really great.
And I'm assuming that if you press M, it'll pop up on your map, it'll show you where you have your stuff stored.
Yeah.
So this would kind of go with the outpost idea in a way, sort of, maybe.
Yeah, honestly, I think those two ideas really complement each other. I was literally about to say that, reading my mind, creepy. Because I'm gonna put a star next to both of those because they could be very easily intertwined. It's very cool. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and the whole thing would basically allow spying and all the other stuff to actually flourish a lot more. Not only spying, but having to work with your faction or whatnot. Should I get resources out from wild back into secure, or maybe just do all that? So
awesome, that's great. Well, thank you so much. That was actually a really awesome suggestion. Does anyone else? Sorry, are you? Is there anything else you want to bring up, or are you?
Nope. That was when I was trying to get out for freaking months.
Perfect. Well, I'm glad I could write it down and listen to it in person. That's great. Who wants to go next?
Can I? Sorry, it's 5 a.m. and I need to go to bed soon. So is it okay?
Oh my god! Yeah,
European. You're up at 5 a.m. What are you?
It's 1:30 a.m. for me. What's your point?
Europe people, get out! Get out!
Quit being racist. You're proud of Asians.
He's from Hong Kong. He's from Hong Kong.
No, I'm from Singapore actually, but
Yeah, guy. Yeah, let's go back on topic.
So a lot of the stuff that was discussed in this call, they were great suggestions. Don't get me wrong, but they were mainly on the sort of path that Starscape's been on for a long time, just putting out solo updates. I know it's been mentioned before, but Starscape is not a solo game by any means. In fact, I'd argue that multiplayer activity is the largest factor in Starscape, rather than just soloing for things like mining and stuff is fine, but other than that, even mining would have a multiplayer aspect to it, such as escorts for VX anomalies and things like that. But with the recent updates, such as warp relays, I know it's been mentioned before, and the ancient update is the one that comes off the top of the head. that's been sort of mainly focused on solo and solo activity. So you go out there, you get a beacon, for example, and then you come back and you solve said beacon on your own. So that I feel that there should be more things to encourage player get-togethers and stuff. Another thing. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I just want to clarify. Like when you say players getting together, do you mean that just like exclusively in the sense of player factions, or do you mean just in general, like getting together with groups of people, even if you're not necessarily affiliated with each other?
I mean, something like faction warfare, I feel did something like that, but also a bit of both actually, because faction warfare, if you see an ally in the same system, and you want to take that system, you usually just communicate in chat, hey, let's go to planet 1 to take down Jen or something. But if it's in, but something like player factions, like Scorn said, I think Scorn put it very well. Player factions for Unsecure and Wild, NPC factions for Contested. That's the divide there. So, you can't really do anything with another player in Unsecure and Wild, because you see another person in Wild, you either kill them or they kill you, unless you're both running badgers, in which case you just run. But
yeah. Oh, that's very accurate.
On the topic of faction warfare, I'd say that's probably the area I'm most familiar with out of everything. Yeah, that I do like. People would obviously be a lot more familiar with stuff than me, but most fleet, well, I say fleet, but they're tiny squadron battles, like 7 to 20 players, happen with 1 hour staring contest until one side gets bored and warps out. Someone hatch warps the entire fleet into the enemy fleet. So right now the advantage is entirely, if it's an even match, given to the side that's camping whatever it is.
Yeah.
If it's like a 11-man, I say fleet, it's not really, but I'm just gonna use that term. If it's an 11-man fleet warping into an 11-man fleet, the latter's gonna win because they'd be able to call out targets. And a huge factor is people all have different warping speeds. So a Justice would warp faster than, sorry, no, not a Justice, a Dread warp amp, I don't know, Horizon would warp faster than a I don't know, warp amp 2 Justice or something. That
There's like no reason not to, by the way, because it costs nothing to replace your ships when you warp on someone.
Right, so and something which I could propose, I'm not saying this is the best way to do this, but would be a sort of squad warp. So like everyone would warp at the slowest speed in the group. So it's like, let's say 1.7 is the slowest, and you have like a warp syncing Napuki. And then you guys could all warp in at the same time. I think that would make it so that there'd be some level of coordination. It would balance things out in that specific situation, which is every single contested battle at the moment. Or skirmish.
That would be interesting. I like the idea of that.
It's like how Eve works with the squads.
Warp syncing for squads. This is actually a really cool idea. I can say personally, like with how much that I personally like engage with faction warfare, it's important for me to hear things like that because I don't engage with it often enough as like a part of a group. I'll often go and try and like just link up with other people, but not necessarily in a group capacity.
Which NPC faction might you be a part of? Just asking.
Cavani.
I like. Well, I personally enjoy the Licentians solely because of my enjoyment. My enjoyment of Star Trek and democracy. That's my bias, but
democracy.
So that's what I do. However, I will say I do enjoy this idea of like, so you join the squad and then your warp, like it just, I guess you.
I mean, there'd obviously be an option, and like the squad leader, would have to do a thing. So just to iron out something that would probably be the most obvious issue is like who would coordinate the warp at the same time, and if you wanted to split up the fleet, that kind of thing. But what I mean by that is maybe the squad leader could initiate like a vote warp to a different planet, and then if whoever ticks yes goes at that speed, that kind of thing. But moving off because I wrote my notes very erratically. I don't know if this is still the case. I'm not in the main server, but when I was still there, I felt that a lot of suggestions were but a lot of suggestions were not being paid attention to. So you had suggestions that would get denied, get attention, say we're planning to add that, that never happens, and like a tiny minority of cases the suggestion gets implemented in a way that's sort of less effective, or it just gets implemented into something else, which is fine. I think the huge disconnect between Keth and the community is something that's been there for years. And this has been brought up before. Yes, but it's something that desperately needs to be fixed. Because whatever's been happening is just not working.
Yeah,
I agree.
Just better systems for this current suggestion box, such as having like a. I was about to say like having like a suggestion tier above the normal suggestions, which get elevated by like people who look over them and are like, oh, we can like we can have like a revote and like for these suggestions where more discourse and more publicity can go to them.
Okay, but also, what if Keth actually played the game? That would, he could formulate his own suggestions if he actually played.
I remember that was a I remember there was we can't really force him to. I mean, he's a busy guy, but the thing is, there was I don't know, 2020, I think. He played the game and he found frigate and corvette speeds were too slow, so he buffed them all. So I think that's something that's just
that was a good change, to be fair, in my opinion.
That was a good change. And
so when he plays the game, good things happen. Just saying.
Remember when the Loxodon had speed?
Here's my unofficial solution. I'm gonna force Keth to sit down and have game nights with me, and we're gonna play the game.
Just saying.
Come join the Lycentian pushes with us.
And get
he's gonna get focused so hard.
Scored. We can harvest tags.
Oh, you're right.
Okay. If you do force him to have a game night, do not have to have him start off on his new account. Do not just bring him in as Zola or Keth. That would be a terrible idea.
Yeah. So Ark,
sounds great. Please do that.
You are not Joe.
I actually like that
idea. Ark, were there any other suggestions that you want to throw out there really quick?
Anyways, just something else I'd like to talk about before I crash onto my bed and not wake up for another month. Basically, something that David sent me. By the way, you should really watch his video. It's amazing.
I've seen it. I've watched it multiple times actually. And taken lots of notes from it.
The one that David Shark put out. It's called Why NPC Factions Really Died.
Yeah.
No, sorry, why player factions really died. Sorry, I'm tired. So
without this chapter part, this chapter part's wrong. It's all incorrect.
This is from David. He says that the primary thing is you can't balance solo and multiplayer content because they're two completely different things. And alternating won't necessarily improve things that much. But at the same time, you do have two different types of players. So you have solo players, and then you have players that play with a vast majority of their time with other people. I'm one of them, so the only reason I get on right now is for combat with other people because it's boring. And one more thing, sorry, I missed this one out. One more thing is the tutorial. I'm going to tutorial now, but the tutorial should really be a something to it shouldn't just be a box that says you've been given a Stratos, use this to take it to Bantam to left click on an asteroid for a minute while a Paragon steals your inferior ore.
Yeah, I agree.
And then go back to Citadel, sell it, and then find your own way to do stuff and look up a tutorial on YouTube and also beg for a ship.
Yeah, I agree with you on that front. I think I mentioned this before, was that the narrative tutorial seems to be a better way to go. I guess you guys can all tell me what you think of this, but do you like the idea of having a situation where you join the game for the first time and you pick the faction that you want to align with based on a general description, and then you get a narrative tutorial that's kind of centered around the lore of that faction?
Then you pick a fact. Sorry.
No, don't worry. I'm getting there. I'm almost good. So you pick that faction. You get a narrative tutorial kind of centered around that faction's general vibe, and then it culminates in like this event that leads to you like respawning at the Citadel, and then you carry out other tutorials. Is that something that would be more in line with like what you see as being a better tutorial, or like something narrative, or do you think
like I said, the narrative by the box and the do you mean by narrative tutorial, do you mean like well, the box in the corner that says Lycentia is a democratic nation, Cavani's a dictatorship, and so is Feralcus. I don't know the difference between those
you
two.
would get more of like a UI that shows the factions, and then you hover over it and it kind of describes them a little bit better. But the actual tutorial mechanics themselves, I would want, controls and things like, let's say if you're starting off in a ship and your whole goal is like maybe, and this is hypothetical for anyone who might be wondering, completely hypothetical, not actually how the tutorial is going to go. Let's say that you start off in a ship and it's like, oh, you're testing this ship and you have to do this. So press A to go this way, or whatever. And like I want the things to come up right in the middle of the screen. I want it to be something that is very obvious and doesn't require you to look in the tiniest corner of your monitor. And I don't want it to be too wordy. I find that the current tutorial is way, way, way too wordy. And I just don't like the system under which it operates. So it would be a complete revamp on our part. We want to completely change how that tutorial flows and make it something that's actually an enjoyable experience that you might want to play again if you wanted to, like make a new account or something, right? And try a different perspective. Let's see what the Cavani tutorial's like, or the trade union, or whatever, right? So yeah, that's my general idea of what I see a rework being.
That's really good. Sorry, I'll say this, and I'll fuck off for the night or morning or day. But thank you. But there is doing that will be much better than the current tutorial. Although the idea of testing ships isn't something that
that's not
personally would sit right with me, because like
no, I mean sorry, what I meant by that was like the hypothetical scenario is like if you were testing a prototype ship or something like that, and that's the reason that it's telling you to like go this way or go that way. That's just a complete hypothetical. It's not actually how we're going to structure the narrative. I'm gonna write an actual like much better reason to be in that situation for the tutorial. So don't worry about that. That is just a completely
actually, Oh, actually, hold on, real quick. Can I ask about the whole idea of testing ships? What is like the current idea, or if there is any idea, on like a sandbox or like an arcade game mode where you could practice ships, kind of like the PTS in a way, but like I don't know. I don't know.
Call it duel in the
Game-
Citadel.
Game modes.
But no, I mean
game
like where you
modes-
could have any ship and like fucking do whatever.
Game modes are an
Ford
interesting
is
thing.
deriving
That's
this
the
from a
public
galaxy.
test server. Every ship, every
Sort of.
item costs 2 credits.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Well, I
wait,
think
really?
that's for the test server, but when it comes
Well,
to
never mind then.
game modes, I think our issue with game modes, because I know a lot of people have asked about game modes in the past, things like battle royales and things like that. The whole problem with that is that if we ever were to do that, it would take away people from the central player base, and we don't want to split the player base. If we're going to have different types of game modes, I personally am on the camp of it should be incorporated into galactic events in some capacity, where you're in the universe and you can go to places to do those things, but it doesn't take you out of the central experience. That is kind of how I view other game modes like that.
Right.
Hold on one second.
Yeah, I would see it as have y'all ever seen how like races and stuff in Forza Horizon work, or events work?
Absolutely.
They have their own, battle. Even that game has their own battle rails and stuff. You just go to a place, you get in. It's a really smooth transition into those game modes, and then when it's done, you're just out of it.
Yeah, just it can be any kind of game mode and nothing specific really. Like it's like you could have races, you could have like pretty much anything. It's all encompassing, but we haven't even confirmed any like alternate game modes or anything like that. Like it's not really the highest thing on our priority list, nor should it be right now, because we want to fix the core game loop. But I think when we do things like galactic events, like that'll be a good like starting point if we want to incorporate new game modes in the future. But for now, there's nothing confirmed, nothing official. It's all just speculation.
I mean, unironically, you should probably put the Among Us game mode somewhere. Like
We were thinking of putting it in the observation area, so that way so people can go there and play it if they want. I think that would be cute.
Yeah,
it's very rudimentary, but I like it. I like
Kath wanted to put it in a system like Omogast or something like that.
he didn't tell me that.
I agree with this absolutely.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm gonna go. Thank you for everything.
Yeah, buddy. Thanks for.
It was wonderful chatting with you. Oh, he can still.
Wow.
Fuck that guy. God. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Hatch, suck my dick. I'm kidding.
So who wants to go next? And then once I think we have time for one more person, and then we should probably turn it towards the chat because I want to hear what the chat has to say before I have to leave, obviously. So let's let's hear whoever's next.
Okay, so first thing I wanted to quickly add to the tutorial thing was, has anyone ever heard of this game called Avorion?
Yes, I love that game. It's great.
I have not.
So in in its tutorial, it basically throws you into the action immediately. It warps you into a system with a big ship, and you have to fight, and then it ends up killing you off.
Yep.
Like immediately after.
Wait, are you talking about the boss? Like the boss, whatever his name is, the third.
So what happens?
Wait, hold on. You died to that?
Yeah, you
died. You died to that? Oh, you're so you're fucking trash, bro.
Score. In the tutorial, you die to the first enemy because they just murder you.
What you should have done. No, what you should have done is you should have like waited. Right? You should have waited to continue the conversation with the boss, and then you should have fucking just had your coordinates set while you're waiting for him to finish his conversation, and then just warping out immediately.
Can we steer back to Starscape?
Yes,
Sorry, not to be that person, but I want to hear
fucking other games.
So what is your?
My point is that we could literally throw players in like
a drum battleship,
like immediately in a boss fight, and just kill them off after it. So like. Yeah. Instead of just making them run to a docking bay and do all the formalities, literally just throw them into the action.
I think okay. So my personal opinion. So I'm assuming this is connected to the tutorial, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, my personal opinion is that the tutorial should end with you dying and cloning in because it sets up the player with the expectation that they are going to die in this game. That's how you cater to the hardcore demographic, and that's the point where I want people to be able to decide. Oh, is this an experience that I want to participate in? Yes, no. The problem that we currently have is that people are deciding if they want to, be part of Starscape based on whether or not they like the Stratos mining thing. Like, that is a horrible, horrible indication. Because how often do you go Stratos mining in Starscape? Never! Never!
I mean, literally, throw the player
I'm doing it right now.
Throw
actually.
the player into
right now.
a hypothetical wild fleet with
Yeah.
with a bunch of miners and fighters.
Well,
and have
the
them
story.
mine, and then have enemies warp on them, and have them kill off their entire fleet while they're fighting.
The story of Starscape as it stands is the drone threat is here. So naturally, the tutorial should be, oh, the drone threat is here, and here you go, fight the drones. Like, the fact that you're not fighting drones in the first couple minutes of like starting the game, that is not good. I think it needs to communicate the opposition very clearly. Who's the enemy? Who am I fighting? Those are the kinds of very like one-note things that just get people so psyched about the lore of the game. Like, what are these things? It adds an element of mystique to them. Like, why am I fighting them? And then the rest of the game is trying to figure out what they are, why they are, and what are we going to do about them. So. Yeah, it just feels like a very natural progression for me when it comes to the tutorial.
Another thing I just wanted to add quickly was to clarify. So, when you refer to core gameplay loops, what do you understand that as?
I understand that as being like, so this can apply, you can have like an overall loop, and then you can have loops for different things like mining or hauling or any like other sub facet of the game. But generally how I perceive the loop of the game is, you start with a ship, you go out, you carry out tasks, you get more stuff to put towards getting new ships and new items, and that's the circle, is constantly, unlocking new things, getting new things, and making that a rewarding experience, right? So in that sense, the thing that you have to do to earn those resources has to feel rewarding, has to feel purposeful. The rewards that you gain have to feel rewarding and have to feel purposeful. And then the things that you purchase with said things have to feel rewarding and have to feel purposeful.
Well, here's the thing, because what are you doing with those things? That's the problem. Because you're just saying mine, get stuff. In my opinion, I think faction warfare is the final piece there. You can use those ships to fight in the war.
Well, it's not just going and getting stuff. It's doing the actual thing. The actual thing that you are doing should feel really good. It should feel rewarding. Like, that is where a lot of games fall short, and it's where we're currently falling short, is that it's not currently a satisfying experience to go out and do a lot of the things that we are asking players to do. So it definitely warrants a fix.
Like, resource gathering is just a means to an end. It shouldn't be an end. Mining shouldn't be this activity that's it should be what you do. It should be
nor should it be tedious.
To do what you want. It shouldn't be tedious, but it shouldn't be the end goal.
I don't think when I say tedious, I mean it shouldn't be the same thing over and over and over again. Like, I would love it if when you're mining, and this, again, I have to throw out this disclaimer so that nobody twists my words. So if you're going to write an article about this after, please message me. Let's say, hypothetically, you're mining, and the rock that you're mining contains some kind of weird alien or some shit, and then it pops out and starts attacking you. That immediately makes mining 10 times more interesting than it currently is, rather than having the same thing over and over again. I want to steer us away from that.
All of the economy bots in the chat right now are getting mad and we're adding combat to mine.
sweating, absolutely sweating.
Intense malding, seething at the mouth.
These guys with like 20 alts just strip mining entire anomalies in minutes.
Cord is telling me that we should steer the conversation towards the chat now, if that's okay. Do you feel like
I do have?
I don't
Mega,
have
did you want
anything
to say
else
some
add
stuff?
other than
I do have stuff to say, but
okay,
who's going
Mega.
first?
How much stuff do you have to say? I'll try to get to as much of it as I can, but let's try
It's just a bunch of FW stuff. A lot of it's been or talked over and regurgitated.
Okay. Anything
so-
like pressure or?
Yeah,
do you
so
want,
FW is really boring because you just do the same thing over and over again. You just shoot
Yes.
at the same standing still structure, and then you shoot at the same standing still beacon. It's just the same thing over and over again. You're just shooting in a direction while staying still. It's not fun. There's no variety in the system. I don't think a leaderboard will work. It would only incentivize more solo content, more solo people going
That's a
out
good
there
point.
killing random players.
I didn't go
So
over
it's just
that.
going to bring
Yes.
more solo players, and that's not going to incentivize more faction multiplayer stuff. Going to kill the game more in a way. All right. LP should be able to be exchanged for more items. Right now, the best thing you can exchange it for is blueprints, and those are oversaturated to all hell, and you can't make money off of it. Also, you're only going to be able to make money off of it if it's a conciliator blueprint. So 2/3 gone. 2/3 of the people gone.
Hey, can I chime in for just a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
I can't speak to the specifics, but we are going to be adding more things that can be purchased for LP that will be extremely useful. So, and I will hopefully be able to disclose that, if not in the first video that we post, but probably the second video that we post, once, fixing a lot of those ground issues, like when you get out of your station to, fight people on the actual station. I want that experience to be overhauled as well. So, there's definitely a lot we can do in terms of adding new stuff to the game that can be purchased for LP, but I will put that in big old bold letters, more purchasables for loyalty points. Absolutely.
I think what me, Mega, and Scorner tried to say is make FW better. It's essentially what we're
Well, that would go under the entirety of the. In fact, the entire conversation you and Mega have been having over the course of this stage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe one of the ways you can capture a system instead of shooting at a beacon is boarding the station and doing ground combat.
That'd be cool. That would be cool.
We should do you're thinking
yes, absolutely.
Star Wars Battlefront 2 2005?
Yes. Yes.
Maybe sometimes instead of there being a station, there's like a big old capital ship, like a destroyer or a battleship, and you have to board the battleship, take it over, and blow it up from the inside, and then come back.
And for some reason, there's droidicas inside.
More station.
yeah, it's like supremacy.
Each faction would have their own planets, presumably. Like the Kavani ship would have good droidicas inside.
I like that idea of
add more variety to capping systems. Just instead of just shooting generators, shooting beacon, maybe shooting something else instead of those.
If I shoot another beacon, I'm going to shoot myself.
Exactly. No, I will say I really like that idea of having a variety in the means through which you capture a system. That's a very good idea. I was just thinking, it really reminded me of that Battlefront 2 2005 experience where, you take out the shields, you go inside, you blow up systems from the inside, things like that. Or maybe having different types of ships or structures that you have to take out. I think that's a really solid idea.
So we could get dropships now.
Then you could have stuff going on the outside. Maybe you can have fighter combat on the outside instead of more destroyer combat.
Now,
and then you could have a ground squad inside too.
I feel like a ground rework would probably be a good prerequisite for an update like that. But I feel like we can still implement a few systems prior to a full ground rework.
Speaking of ground reworks, I just got a really good idea. What if PDTs could lock to people? That would be pretty wicked. That would be insane.
It's like that one picture with the chain gun inside of a station.
All right, so this was great. I'm just gonna say we're gonna turn the floor over to the chat.
Oh wait, I have one more thing.
Okay, hold on.
So
chat.
maybe
Sorry. I will extend
with FW, there could be seasons or something like that, right? Where there's warfare going on for a little bit, and then it stops, and then in between those warfare periods, there's galactic events going on and stuff like that. So that way, there's incentive to go and capture systems during those quote unquote seasons or whatever. So that way, you're for the month period that's after the season or whatever, your faction's big or something. I don't know.
Okay, cool.
That's all I got to say.
All right. Well, thank you so much. That was a very awesome contribution to the discussion. Just to let the chat know, I'm going to be extending my time here a little bit just to be able to answer a few more questions from you guys because I know we ran a bit over time. I first and foremost, for everyone who was able to attend, even those of you who aren't like here anymore and had to go and in some cases sleep because you were awake at 5 a.m. God. Thank you for being here and engaging with me on this. I hope it has been productive for all of you, and I hope you feel like you're being listened to. And I guess now is the time for me to take what you have said and put it to work. And hopefully we can come out with some things that'll make everyone here at least mostly happy, because there is no such thing as perfection when it comes to addressing a lot of these issues. But yes, big hearty thank you to you guys, and thank you of course to Cord for hosting this and like giving this space for us to kind of bridge this gap. It's been exceptional so far.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So yeah, let's turn this over to the chat. So Cord, if you want to help me siphon through here and pick out some questions.
Right there, that's probably smart.
Good
Perfect.
idea.
All right, and I will address them. Is there a slow-mo on or anything like that?
All right,
or?
I'll put slow-mo on. That's actually wait, hold on.
It's only 5 seconds right now. Okay, yeah, we need more.
All right, I'll just make it 15.
Thank you.
I
Thank
had
you,
a question I was
Dragon.
going to ask, but I can wait for later.
Okay, I was gonna say thank you, Dragon. That's very nice of you.
Dragon
yeah.
Bees.
So let's see. Sorry, if you hear me mumbling, it's because I'm reading a question.
Gotcha.
Oh, okay. No, I like this suggestion about anyone with visual impairments. That's good. Yeah, obviously accessibility is a huge deal. I want to make sure that we use bright, bold colors anytime that we can, just to, make sure that things are discernible to the naked eye, whether you're colorblind or not. Absolutely. And you love the mammoth, and you want the mammoth back. I will think about that. I can't make any promises. I'm so sorry. I've never seen like Die Hard mammoth love. Sorry, it's like just kind of hit me. My opinion on assigning more community members to higher positions in the game development. Like, do you mean just adding more people to the dev server? Like, I generally believe that we can hire people based on their general skill level. I don't think I necessarily know what you mean by this. I want to recruit more people from the community to engage in community related things, but in terms of game development, like if you're talented, like maybe the answer here would be if we opened up applications in the future for the dev team or something like that. Like, hopefully that answers your question. Sorry, I was a little bit confused there. Tank, is the staff team willing to rework the whole faction warfare system to make it playable? Willing to? Okay, so a loaded question, but willing to? I guess we'd be willing to if the entire system itself had like no redeeming qualities. Like the actual capture system, there's still something there that can be improved upon. So I don't think it needs like a complete from the ground up rework. I think it definitely needs like a lot of improvements, and like a lot of people here have been saying, more variety. I think that would be wonderful. How do I feel about the current bounty system? It's a good starting point for I guess a system, but I feel like it could be improved by having like actual tracking mechanics and the ability to like actually hunt people. I also feel like the bounty system could be expanded to include NPC bounty missions for anyone who wants to be like a bounty hunter. I feel like there isn't enough leeway there for players to truly define themselves as an individual and like have their own kind of like career path if you are a solo player. Like at the moment, it's just kind of like you do your thing. I want to bring in things like that. Like if you want to be a bounty hunter, you can be a bounty hunter. I think that would be cool. Tutorial should spawn you in a ship instead of on ground in some way, because that is what. Yeah, no, I agree. I think I mentioned that I want I want you to be in the cockpit immediately. I want you to start in a ship. I think that's essential. That's the game, right? It's not landscape, it's Starscape. Let me be clear. So let's get people in a ship and blowing shit up immediately. That's what I want. How about making faction battleships blow up like drone battleships? That's a decent idea. I feel like having similar systems, especially if it's based on things that we already have. No, not totally without merit. So yeah, definitely. That's a really cool suggestion. Saw someone say faction clothing. Yeah, we're working on a couple of reworks for clothing. So stay tuned for that. Very exciting stuff from our 3D modeler in the works. Shadow is an absolute legend. So if you ever see Shadow, pay him lots of compliments and don't tell him I sent you, because I want him to think that it's 100% based on just him being known and appreciated. Just taking a bit of water there. I'm answering these like super rapid fire. I hope everyone's impressed. So are we going to be changing warping to wild systems to be a bit more, current system feels clunky. You warp in somewhere, you warp along, or you'll get killed by the inevitable drone fleet. Are you talking about making wild? I guess Rack, you're here. Are you talking about making wild more interesting in general?
Currently, wild is somewhere you go in and you just kind of you have to keep warping in order to not get killed. And I feel it feels like there should be a better system for that, rather than just waving to the drone, to the 5th drone fleet encounter as you warp along. I feel like maybe putting those things off to the side more, changing the way you get threatened, make it more of a minigame.
I feel like, there's a lot of threats we can add to the game that will make it more interesting. I don't think every single threat needs to be something that can shoot at you. I think having more existential or environmental threats. I love how I said existential. What does that mean? What could that be? Your character wakes up and has depression.
It's underselling the drones by just having it something you just kind of wave to as you warp along. It's underselling the drones as a threat. It's underselling pirates as a threat. It makes them appear like a joke, as they would watch you just warp along. It also feels weird. Every single system has these too. You warp it, 9 out of 10 planets are going to have some sort of enemy, fleet or pirate den or NPC just a threat. Yeah.
So basically, saying if a player wants to engage with it, they will, and if they don't, they won't. That's what I'm gathering from this. I think, relocating them a little bit wouldn't hurt. Sure, maybe. I think that's a solid suggestion. Yeah.
Harder.
So add more incentives for small ship combat. So that's a good one. And thank you. Sorry if I'm not naming people, by the way. Lava Sniper, thank you. Sorry I missed that a couple of times, but I think when it comes to how ship combat currently functions, I see it as too linear. I feel like it's just you get a fighter, then you get a corvette, then you get a frigate, then you get a destroyer, and then the biggest baddest ship is obviously the most powerful. I don't like that. I want to have ships added to the game, and this is a personal thing of mine. So again, remember, when we're talking about this stuff, this isn't official. This is all speculation. We're just having a good time talking about the game. But for me personally, I want to see more support ships, things that groups and factions can actually use in a faction warfare or NPC faction warfare that will allow them to coordinate as a group and not just warp out, keep their distance, pick off targets. Adding diverse ships and anyone who's in this community around the same time or longer than I have knows that I have for a very long time been very adamant about things like bombers and how that would really shake up the combat. It's just what can we do to make it less linear and make it actually rewarding when you get into a fleet battle, so it's not just keep your distance and beams, and then get back and then beams, right? It's it's very linear and very annoying right now. So there's a couple of things we could do to improve that.
Do you think ships should be based around? So obviously, like a bigger ship is going to cost more, but should they be based around like the bigger ship is always going to be more useful, or should we have more of a like focus on like ship rule, where like every single ship, even if it's like relatively cheap, is going to have a role in the fleet, and that's why you want to have them.
Yeah, I think having ships with designated roles isn't a bad thing. I like, first of all, it adds more ships to the game for a more group purpose, and that kind of addresses the issue of too much solo content, right? It incentivizes that kind of combat. So I think that having ships with, purposes that are more intrinsically linked to faction warfare or an NPC faction warfare as well, I think that's generally a great thing that we could do if we wanted to. Sorry, I just want to make sure that I'm not missing any of these questions here. Mist of Man said, "What's the story with player stations? Are we ignoring them?" We are absolutely not ignoring them. The fallout from Accelerator was pretty bad. And we know that it's like a running meme about how we screwed up player stations, but just to concretely say, we are not like completely squashing them. That would be ridiculous. Like I think there is so many cool things that can come of player stations. I think there's just the case of what do they look like and how do we get them into a game, get them into the game in a way that feels like natural and not just a tycoon simulator, or on the other hand, a lag fest that will crash a server, right? What's the middle ground? And I think, a lot of the things that we discussed in this panel today were extremely useful, and I'm going to bring them back to Kath. Is it possible for updates to release in smaller chunks so newbies don't get completely overwhelmed when one drops? I think that updates once a month for like sizable things is a pretty decent aspiration, or at least moderately sized updates, right? My personal take is that updates shouldn't all be linear. I think that there are some things that just should be added to the game as soon as they're done. No, like having this perfect system added to the game. Like there are certain things that we don't need to wait on. And that can range from, simple quality of life improvements to full blown like ships that we're adding to the game. I don't think we should always have to focus on like, oh, once a month we have to have this incredibly in-depth update that has all of these features. I think if we have features that we can add to the game and then gradually expand on as beta progresses, that will be the most beneficial thing for the community, because not only will these just be bare bones features, it'll be early on enough in its development that any changes we make can be based around player opinion to such an extent that players can really shape what those updates are going to look like once they reach a final form. Let me see just my other questions here. Have you heard of Leo's idea where all destroyer turrets, including smalls, get a decrease in turret rotation speed? So it is inherently just better than corvettes and frigates. I actually didn't see that. Rack might have sent it to me because he likes to send suggestions to me for my my notes, which is very helpful. Thank you, Rack. But no, I haven't seen that idea. I can't really comment much on that because that feels like it falls under more of the category of our our testing and balancing teams. So I think I can't really confidently ask that, so or answer that, so I apologize. Dropships, ground gunships, energy haulers for faction warfare, torpedo bombers. Yeah, those are all like really cool ideas. I think again it feeds into that whole aspect of things that we can add that make that group experience more rewarding and make coordination, accelerate beyond just picking out targets. There are actual genuine strategies that could be employed by factions to make warfare a truly engaging experience. Healing turrets, damage boosts, and specific ships.
Critique. When is the rest of that power wheel coming out? When you hold with the drone menu, you know how there's a bunch of other options that are grayed out.
Field modulation and energy stuff is not coming out. That's scrapped.
No, that's not entirely scrapped. I think it's just like that wheel might just get a bit of a rework, but it's not scrapped. Like we want to be able to have the opportunity to fix any systems that have flaws. I think right now we're just not at a place where we can like use that wheel to its full potential. But I would just say that's on a bit of a hiatus right now. Let's see.
By the way, with regards to the previous question about the turret rotations, we are suggesting to Kath or pushing to have the few minute changes to some turrets like flag or whatever. So yeah, we're working on that. So whenever it's ready, then it'll be ready.
May I quickly ask a question about mines? Is there going to be anything changing to them, as in more mines, like maybe like an maybe like a visible mine, something like that, or like
mines are an interesting one because mines, I feel like have the potential to be something really neat, and we don't really, we didn't really feed into that enough. I think I feel like if we were to improve on mines, that would come with a general overhaul of things like missiles, bombs. If we were going to add an update like that, like that's where I would see mines fitting into the schedule. But no, you're right. I think mines deserve some love, and I think we should probably look at how we can diversify that and make it more usable. Because I like mines. I think mines are fantastic. What about let's see. So fix to player crashing servers when sieging stations. Make each planet in a server be a separate server, or make stations multi-system. Just anything to do with multiple servers. There's a couple of issues there, David. I think it depends on if you're referring to, like, David, if you're in the chat still. Well, actually, I don't want to miss these other questions. So no, I'll scroll down. David, if you're in the chat, can you confirm? Are you speaking to like player, like if it was a player station siege, or okay? So if it's the problem with separate servers is that that leads to a logistical nightmare. Like if you are going to perform a siege on a station and to defend said station, and you start splitting it into multiple servers, and I'm like, how do you even put that individual player station across multiple servers like that and enable people to still defend it? Like there's a couple of logistical things that at least from my perspective would be a bit of an issue. I would have to talk to Kath about it a bit more, obviously, but that is the general consensus on where we're at. I think ultimately if we are to do stations in some form where you can siege them, it may require Roblox to be a bit less of a shitty platform. not to knock them hard for it, but they need to get those servers modernized, because I am itching to do a lot of things. I am good at PvP. Don't roast me. So let's see, what else did I miss here? Okay, here's a suggestion from a faction leader that I want to go over. And I will probably continue answering questions, by the way, guys, for another 15 or so minutes. So don't feel like you have to rush or anything. I'll get to as many as I can. As a faction leader, this is from Rule Glore. As a faction leader, I suggest that we have a system where we have a verified faction list. It gets a bit tricky. Where you can join factions. This would make recruiting much easier.
Is that even possible?
Yeah, so, what qualifies as a verified faction, though, is kind of where we get into tricky territory.
It's gonna be a list. It's just gonna be SJC.
Yeah. So what I'm in favor of instead, alternatively, is that we make advertising for factions just generally more accessible, so that people don't feel like they have to use the bounty system where they can make alts of their factions' names and then just set a bounty on them. The fact that existed is proof enough to me that people want some kind of advertising mechanism. Like I think we should. Obviously.
Well, you need to be able to the main thing is that Discord is the main way you're able to organize a faction, and you need to be able to pipe people directly from the Roblox game into a Discord.
Okay, but the problem with piping players from Roblox is that you can't communicate with them. Remember, the game doesn't support like cross-system chatting, and the only way for people to communicate would be the announcements channel, which is very, very hideous. So, I mean, it is what it is, right? You can't just expect the platform to change for one game. So I don't see it's possible for like an in-game like faction board, especially since like most of them are going to be like 12. Can't use Discord. Like it's kind of pointless.
So back to some more chat questions. For player stations, there's a lot of player station chatter. I can't imagine why. A good idea would be for player stations that are located in wild, allow it so that drone and pirate raids could happen. This discourages anyone from placing them in wild. But well, I if we were to do it, I would want people to ideally put them in wild space though. So,
if you guys are building stations and unsecure, you should rethink your life choices or uninstall them.
I'll consider doing it. How soon can we expect a faction warfare refocus in development if one ever comes? Given that's a great question, Tank, by the way. Thank you very much for that question. So I think based on this call itself, it's definitely it's going to be bumped up in my personal priorities for what I bring to Keth. Obviously, we talk about a lot of quality of life things and whatnot, and that's great and all, but I really do think we need some meaningful changes. My general, how soon can we expect a non-quality of life update next month? So my general ethos on this whole thing is we should be pushing out meaningful updates for the next little while. I think that would make sense because we've been doing enough quality of life stuff. I think it's time that we actually bring in more content that is oriented towards actual, meaty updates that do things for the game loop and improve the, group player experience. Next month, my time. Don't be sassy, okay? Okay, so generally, I just started this role. So when I say that something is coming next month, it's coming next month, and that should be the standard unless I come out and say it has been delayed by another actual week or
so
something.
1 month from right now, so next month on the 16th.
Do you want to get technical with it?
Yes, I do. I do.
It's the exact date.
I will mark it on my calendar.
Date and time.
That time, and then we're going to have
such your
to the millisecond.
I would say
closer
to like what? Wait, what? It's April.
Dude, dragons are like actually
Closer to like May 28th, 30th, that kind of. I think towards the end of the month is a good time to like 28th to the 30th or whatever the last weekend ends up being in there. I don't know. Just closer to the end of a month, I think, is a really good metric for it. I will announce more specific dates once we start putting out videos where we address upcoming content.
Who's going to be making these videos?
Scorn clean the last month of May. We're going to fight
Did someone say who's going to be making the videos?
Yeah.
Me. I am. I'm making the videos. That's my new job.
Do you need help?
I'm always down for help.
If I help you making videos, can I get back on the testing?
Yeah, me too. Yeah, me too.
How about all of us just help him with this?
Yeah, let's all help him out.
Me too.
So just help him out, buddy.
Don't worry. I'm generally good, but if I do want to expand things a little bit more, obviously I will put out, applications and whatnot and encourage people to engage with it. But right now we have I can tell you what it is. It is basically in the style of a Nintendo Direct video. Obviously not as complex, but it's in a similar style where I will be on camera delivering content. That is the plan. So get used to seeing my face.
Put on a suit, get on a green screen, and cut it out like a true Nintendo Direct.
Meg, can I ask a 5-second question?
Sorry, I just want to make sure I stay up to date with these questions here. Small where does this come from? Small ships are the only ones who can warp to certain areas. Add on to what I said earlier, give bonuses to fighter combat versus frigate destroyer, healing, turrets, damage boost. Bombers could specifically give a use for space mines and warp disruptors. Maybe global turret traverse nerf to make more agile small ships viable.
Everything.
Stacy, yeah, there's a lot of good things here. Yeah, no, I can only really just kind of like taking screenshots of things, by the way, because I do not have time to write all of this down. Definitely taking a screenshot of that. There's some useful improvements there. Tortilla says, why do we need videos? I think just regular text updates work because we want to expand Starscape's platform beyond just the Discord, because we have a sizable amount of people who don't find content for Starscape on Discord, believe it or not. It is actually kind of dramatic. I want to be able to have our presence on multiple platforms and deliver like content that is 10 times more effective and to the point. I think a video is very much more digestible for a lot of people rather than a wall of text. I find that walls of text just get lost. And there's a lot of things that just get overlooked. But when you have videos, that is a concrete way of saying, here's what we discussed, and here is what we want to do. And you can refer to it at any point, and it's just a comprehensive 8 minutes of content. I think it's a really great system to have, and a lot of people do it, and it's also proven based on analytics that we had a much higher engagement rate when it came to the original dev vlogs that Keth used to do. Those were much more well received than the current dev vlogs. So I'm definitely in favor of the video content for sure.
The videos are kind of good too.
Sorry, what was that?
The videos are nice too. I like the videos.
Yeah, videos are fun. We can do videos about like other things as well. It's not just going to be monthly updates. Like I'm going to be making advertisements for like certain ships. I was actually jokingly talking to Keth about having advertisements for Starliners, and then my girlfriend's going to voice them, which is so good. Because I feel like when you have a luxury ship like that, I don't know if Dandy can sell it. You know, we need like that soft. Yeah, they're just like that soft.
Dandy can sell you like a snake oil.
I think Dandy can sell it because you know those monotone voices that are like that talk about cruise ship ads.
Flag turrets?
Better yet,
the flag turret ad?
I don't think that's Dandy. I don't think that's Dandy.
Better yet, we get the AI thing that basically deep fakes your voice, and we just get Dandy to voice everything, and then we can just interchange his gender depending on what we want the tone of the video to be.
Oh my god!
Hello, everyone. My name is Dandy.
Everyone's Dandy. Everyone's Dandy. It's all Dandy all the way down.
Am I the only one who really fucking hates Dandy's voice?
I don't mind it.
I hate Dandy. I just don't hate
his voice is creamy. I would say that's the only thing about his voice.
Oh,
Dandy is the leader.
Maybe I
of
just
the
really
hated
fucking
faction.
hate it.
He does have
Sorry,
a good
back to the
voice.
I think you just
but-
really fucking hate Dandy
Back
in
to the
general.
question.
That's you.
Guys,
Here
talk
is
about
an
Dandy's
issue.
voice.
About Dandy does.
Does Dandy still lead SJC?
I want to answer more
You
questions.
saying you let it in the
Okay,
first
shut up. Shut the fuck up. Nico, why are you even here? Shut up.
I want to answer questions. So Patwig said, will there be a change for ore spawn in deeper in wild and around planets? We actually do have an idea for making wild a bit more, good for things like ore spawning. I think right now it could be a lot better. I think the deeper into wild you go, we do want there to be a metric of better resources will be found the deeper you go into wild. So it won't just be like a random, like all or at least all the time random, like, oh, you go this far into wild, you're not gonna like you're gonna get what you get. It's going to be based on distance from the core. So there will be an increased percentage in rewards that you might obtain from traveling further out, which I think is a great thing because it incentivizes people actually
Adding on
travel.
to that, I think Keth has already changed the ores that spawn in certain regions. So
yeah, it's already it's
changed
an
in the testing server. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that. We'll have to see.
Hank asking another great question: how will danger be increased the further you go into wild? Obviously, like the mobs that spawn, we want pirates to be more of the central threat in core systems, but drones, we want them to be a bit more of an exciting wild experience. Now, that said, when it comes to threats in wild space, my vision for the future is having it so it's not just drones. Like there should be disasters that you have to worry about. whether it's like a maelstrom in space or like this crazy, whatever that just emerges and like you have to deal with that problem, or even like a wildlife situation. I think those are very meaningful changes that can add a lot more difficulty and edge to wild space. Whereas, currently it's just drones and pirates and whatever you come across. Like it's not very exciting.
Warpath.
Oh my god, I have an idea for you.
Someone asked me
galactic events minus efficiency.
Vendorships have kind of been rendered obsolete. That's not to say that we couldn't rework we couldn't rework them into some other kind of vehicle, because there's still something we could maybe do there, but I can't make any promises on that front. I think the vendor ships have deceased for now. But again, who knows? That's always a possibility. We're always open to suggestions like that, but I think I have to.
You make them faction advertisement, but you don't allow them. You still make them uncraftable, so it's like an exclusive thing which factions have to grind for. Where, to an extent, where it's like one of those like limited because. Sorry, never mind.
Yeah, so I was going to say, Creeper asked, my question is, what happened to combat probes? I feel like they would be extremely useful right now. They're just taunting me in the probe menu. Yeah, we're going to add them. We're going to add them in the future. They're definitely going to come. It's not going to be one of those things that we don't add to the game. I think they are essential. But ideally, before we add those updates, I would like it if combat was better. And then we can start focusing on that. But I think fixing combat itself and making PvP more rewarding should be the immediate focus. But definitely in the future, we will add combat probes. That's still coming. Let's see what else we got here. Will there be lore extension for drones and guardians? No lore questions. Sorry, guys. I'm not at liberty to discuss lore. I just cannot do it today. But the short answer to that would be sure. An idea to turn drone battleships and crystallines into actual group activity. So one thing that we have discussed a lot is galactic events, and definitely galactic events would be something where those kinds of features get expanded upon. Whether it's like large drone encounters where a bunch of people have to flock to a system and defend it, or if it's a race, like if we're going to do like space races or something like that, if that's ever something that we wanted to do, that's where galactic events kicks in and gives us that platform to be able to actually do those things. So definitely not a bad idea whatsoever. Tortilla, will there be lore? There already is. Lore is not... Okay, so I'm going to say this for everyone. Lore is not just like narrative. Lore is literally anything that exists in the game, okay? Everything is lore. Everything is lore. The color of the Lycentian ships, that's lore. Why are they blue? Who knows? Like, all of it is lore. So if you want narrative, that's a different story. We will add narrative in the future. There will be missions. I'm responsible for the whole mission revamp, so pray for me. Cruisers or gunships, when I cannot speak to that. I think I think that is something where we don't want to fall into the trap of just pumping ships into the game and then not having any meaningful mechanics to kind of preface them. I think we want to avoid that because it doesn't really do anything for the game itself. More group PvE. It was really fun to fight drone battleships in groups back when it wasn't possible to solo them. I mean, I think that is an interesting suggestion. I didn't realize it was that easy to fight. Is it that easy to fight a drone battleship? Because last time I
did a 4K range, just snipe them.
20 minutes are done.
Really? Oh, well, that's rubbish. I'm going to write that down and say, let's fix that. Oh my God.
They got unintentionally nerfed, I think, because the range used to be 5K range.
I'm going to say
like their aggro range is 3.5 range.
You get coils and just kill it. That's an oversight. Yeah, I'm gonna write that in my notes. Fixed drone battleship.
Yeah. Okay. Let me just go through the entire process real quick. The entire process of drone hunting right now is you find level 5 fleets, you ignore everything else, you kill the level 5 fleet, and you hope there's a battleship at the end. That's the current grinding method. Like, because people think fleets are not fun. People think people think that like fleets are not fun because it's just health bars to burn through. People think the pirate dens are not fun because it's just the health bars to burn through. They can be fun, but it doesn't tend to be fun if you just kind of have to sit there and like hit this thing for an hour with like cannons, and that you just slowly see the health bar go down.
Was their shield regen ever fixed?
Not that I know of.
No.
Shield regen for battleships, or
yeah.
No, that's a very good suggestion. I wrote that down because that's definitely something that can be fixed so easily. Does anyone else in the chat have questions? Because I'm going to be closing this in a couple of minutes here, and I want to make sure that I get as many as possible. Increased drone drop rates currently, but okay, yeah. Improving the loot pool, definitely on my list.
Decreasing drone health, but increasing maybe. I don't know how to phrase it. I would say decrease drone health to what they were before, and maybe increase their damage a little bit. Just generally making it more based around teams and making it more satisfying to kill a drone rather than just sitting there and like having to put 3 drone volleys into a frigate.
Yeah, and like there's a lot of modules that we have right now, and that can really be useful in those kinds of situations to make it so that you don't have to camp at like 4K and just snipe with a beam or something. Like that's not fun. No one likes that. Like that's just boring.
I had fun when I went out with a Halo and I had like 6 beams and I just one hit a drone frigate and skirmish a level 5 fleet to death. That was kind of fun.
Tank, forgive me. I'm not really so guys, just to be clear, I am really bad with acronyms. So what does RNG mean?
Random number generator.
Okay, thank you. In that case, yeah, that's a really great suggestion, Tank. I will add that to my list as well. I'm so bad with acronyms. Someone was just hit me with a bunch of acronyms at one point, and I was like, I cannot answer this. I have no idea.
What's your opinion on GA?
Oh my god. By the way, a critique, if you gotta go, I can stay by for...
No, I don't have to. It's not that I have to go. I just wanna have a bit of a kind of like a post discussion thing here where I talk to a couple of the news people that are obviously here, like your Citadel link, and if Stellar Community's here, I want to talk to them specifically.
I think they are.
Yeah, no, they're not here.
Is Stellar Community not here?
Yeah, they boycotted us for some reason. Haha.
Oh, well, that's just a loss on their part because I wanted this to be a joint thing. Oh, well,
you
that's
probably
unfortunate.
in the future. I mean, I'm technically like supposed to be the representative, I guess. Like, but I just kind of came on my own volition. But I guess I can be the representative. You probably should have given a bigger invitation to them.
Yeah.
Okay, Moldy, your question doesn't really make sense. I don't really understand.
If pirates are not supposed to be the main threat for wild space, how come pirates have the most power in wild? That's just simply what it is right now. We're going to move pirates to be more central to the core. I think drones being the wild threat makes more sense for the lore of the game. Ooh, I said the L word.
He's talking about player pirates.
He's talking about what?
Player pirates. Which is
player pirates.
I'm confusing what he's saying.
Well, in that case, no. Player pirates can be wherever they want. I meant the NPC pirates. I'm sorry, buddy. No, yeah, player pirates can go wherever the hell they want. I was specifically referring to like how NPC pirates as a faction should be probably more centered in core space as opposed to wild. Are there plans for ground combat? You bet your ass there's plans for ground combat. Can I speak to any of them? No, but they will come.
I'm 90% sure that Danny has a list somewhere. I'm just like,
no, I will expose all the dev team plans for ground combat. We're gonna add a bunny pet for an extra 12% damage.
We're gonna add a battle pass.
Yes.
Oh, God, don't say that. Don't say that. They'll believe it. No.
I'm sorry.
I'm not even on the dev team. Why are
they'll believe it anyway. No, there's no battle passes. God, I would kill myself.
No, wait. You should put me on the dev team, and then I'll say that.
Yeah, no, obviously. Can wild unsecure be rebounds stop people from Stratos rushing or rushing unprepared into loot zones? I cannot speak to balancing things. I'm not completely aware of what you're talking about, but maybe if you can make that into an easily digestible suggestion and then explain it to me later, that would be super helpful, so I can deliver it to Keth in a more comprehensive manner.
Sure. Where is it?
It was the one. It was one of Tank's suggestion. Rule says faction leader in game can make waypoints that all members can see. This would be helpful for organizing and meeting up. They can make waypoints to one NPC station that members can remember and go to. This can give a whole new meaning to upgrading stations by donating resources. Factions can make beacons that can lock systems so only they can mine them. That's a bit weird. Or would be alarmed and then destroyed. I don't know. Locking systems, that's a bit of a touchy one. I would have to give that more thought. I'll screenshot it and give it a revision later. But generally, yeah, no, there's good ideas here. I think faction leaders having so that's one thing that I didn't really get a chance to talk about with you guys was I want to expand the faction UI so that a lot of the things that are kind of, existing on Discord or on Google Sheets, things like tracking resources and stuff, like I want there to be centralized systems within the game that take a lot of the onus off of faction leaders to track those things. I think we need to make factions as convenient as possible for leaders to actually run, because the back end of it is so goddamn infuriating that I have I basically gave up on trying to run one because I couldn't keep up with it.
Okay, Critique, I have something to send you.
Sure, go ahead and send it to me, and I'll just.
It's gonna be a file.
Okay. As long as you don't IP grab me. Yeah.
No, it's not an IP logger. It's just. Can I have the embed terms for a second?
Hold on, I'll send you.
Yeah.
It's not a direct IP logger. Technically, any sort of link is an IP logger. It's not.
It's a file of the resource logs I've been doing for the past year.
You now have embed perms.
Okay.
Embed attach files there.
I want to just address something really quick. Someone said, "Can you DM me?" You guys can always DM me. My only stipulation for if you're going to DM me is please keep it concise. Try not to clutter my DMs with things that will ultimately, not be profitable, such as sending me weird shit. Whoever sent me weird shit.
Critique, or I will remove you.
I will happily read suggestions if they are sent to my DMs, but I don't want people to make a habit of that, right? Keep using the suggestions channel. I think on this specific occasion, it is okay for people to totally send me DMs after this if you have questions, especially if you're going to be writing any stories or follow-ups from this conversation. I want to make sure that all the information is clear and that nothing is misinterpreted. I don't want to wake up tomorrow and see in the Citadel link that player stations have been confirmed and here's what they're going to look like. I will shit my pants. Okay?
I will.
Critique, you should expand the thing. I think.
Tank's suggestion from earlier. So the one which you said was incomprehensible. Well, basically, what he was saying was that currently one of the best ways to as a new player to get better gear and get better ships is to just go out into wild with your stratos and just loot all these ancient structures and such and get out. He was worried that that's a bit too easy, that just going into wild with the stratos and then getting out unscathed is kind of a bit stupid. He was wondering if that was going to be changed or if there's going to be more of a punishment towards players who try and do that.
I think here's the interesting thing is that sorry, this chat's really funny. The thing is that the more towards wild space you go, the less rules there really are. But when we're talking about things like core systems, obviously if you're in a policed system and you're going and you're hauling stuff through and you try to pirate somebody and you get killed by the police, that is an example of consequences for your actions. I think having it so that less consequences are there for the actual pirate the further out you go. The risk factor is what makes it appealing.
It's more like the lines of just players are able to just go out in wild and with absolutely nothing in their inventory, literally just the stratos, get very, very decent loot for their level just by ignoring all these like massive fleets and like all these like NPCs and guards over there, ignoring them, just looting structures, coming back with the structure loot, and now they're building like destroyers. I think that's his main concern here.
So am I hearing Stratos nerf?
I think he wants more of like you shouldn't be able to just like go out to wild. I think
I agree.
He's trying to say.
I agree. I think it should have it should be a lot more dangerous initially. Yeah, I agree. That being said, if you're able to go out into wild and successfully take out like drones in wild in your Stratos, that's kind of like that. Either they're really good or we just have a really bad system when it comes to how drones are balanced.
Oh,
and
really bad system right now.
Yeah, it's probably the latter, isn't it? Yeah.
Like for instance, you can scan the entire system while you're just warping between planets, and like you're basically immortal. And then you warp to the anomalies you find, or like the X structures you find, and you're good. Or you just warp, or you just fly away from the center of where everything is. You're beyond detection range.
So maybe if you couldn't necessarily use a scanning probe during warp, would that be a good way to kind of like help mitigate some of those issues?
Well, for instance, that would require people to have escorts. Like if you warp in somewhere and you can't just like if you warp in somewhere and you have to deal with the drones there.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I'd like nerfing the number of drones everywhere. But secondly, that would require escorts to be able to like have someone defend convoys while they go out to wild. Instead of just like instead of a single guy being able to just kind of like warp through the entirety of wild without getting hit by a drone because they just keep warping on cooldown.
Yeah, that would also be. Yeah, I mean, my concern with that is just newer players who are solo can't really go into wild for resources like Red Core anymore, because if you're in Honey Badger, they're just gonna die.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think making wild more dangerous is a given. I'm gonna write it down in big bold letters, but like, wild space does need to be more dangerous, more dangerous and more punitive. I think, yeah. No, it's definitely important. How about nerfing energy regen while in warp so they can't just keep...
talk about that one if you don't mind, since it's a balancing matter.
You know what? Yeah, go ahead, and then I'm gonna, while you're talking about it, I'm gonna look up the last couple of questions here that I can answer.
So nerfing energy regen in warp, while it is in theory a pretty good idea, which can be implemented. The problem with that is if we have fleet battles, then it's not going to be fair for the team that warps in. Sure, we can add invulnerability fields, but I mean it's a thing we can look into, but wouldn't be a priority for combat at the moment. Alternatively, you can also use modules like Warp Amplifier to catch up.
Okay, so if you want to direct message me about the bounty system, yeah, you can go ahead and do that, Matt. But again, I don't want everyone to make a habit out of that. It's really hard for me to keep up with like individual DMs, but just know that I am reading through Racketeer these suggestions. We are working on that together. So suggestions are being read, and I can confirm that they are being read. So, and don't worry, if I sound a little bit monotone, by the way, now, it's probably because I'm losing my voice a little bit, but we're wrapping up in a sec here.
Yeah, you had that like 30 minutes ago.
I know. I'm just enjoying. I'm enjoying the community interaction. I love doing this kind of stuff.
Understandable.
Core system NPCs shouldn't attack you since you literally cannot fight back. Is that a thing? That's funny. Okay. No, I'll make it.
I think you guys made them invulnerable at one point. I can't confirm that though.
Interesting.
Okay, I remember that one, Rack.
Just looking to see if there's any other final questions.
I'll stay behind for the next 10 minutes if you guys have any balancing questions.
Wait, hold on. So Tortilla, okay, let's address this. We have had these Q&As before, and Dev Team always makes big promises like today. What big promises were made? What big promises were made? Because this has more or less been a conversation about hearing update next month. Yeah, that's extremely feasible. See, I think the problem here is that you see an update next month as being like a huge promise. That shouldn't be a huge promise anymore. That should just be a given. We should be able to deliver content on a monthly basis. That is not something that should be considered a huge promise. So my rebuttal to that is I'm sorry that you see it that way, and I'm going to try and do my best in this current position to make it so that you trust us again to deliver content on a more regular basis like that. Because I don't think anyone should have to look at a simple update next month and say, oh, that's a huge promise. Yeah, that's definitely a big issue with the community. So I will work to address that and make sure that you trust us a little bit more, and that those kinds of things aren't seen as lofty promises, because they shouldn't be. Should more money sinks be in Starscape? People have too much money right now. I'm all for more credit sinks. I think resource sinks are extremely important right now, though. And that's why fixing insurance will be a great way to bring back those resource sinks. Because credit sinks are great, but yeah, we definitely need resource sinks.
Didn't we talk about a salvage system at one point where you can go out with like salvage ships and you have a wreck and you have to like go to the wreck with a salvage ship.
Salvage system is interesting. It's just that we can't really like expedite that because we would need to put it through a bit more testing. I think rolling back what we've done with insurance and adding some subtle improvements is the best way forward. And then if we ever wanted to add things like salvaging in the future, like that is a bit more of a, like, we can do that later. The most important thing is getting insurance fixed. In such a way that it makes PvP a lot more engaging. Let me just scroll up, see if I missed anything here.
Don't worry, guys. Insurance is pretty high on the priority right now because we know the economy is busted and we're working to fix that. So just give us a bit of time. And
what kind of insurance system are you leaning towards? Because there's obviously like the system where you like have 100% insurance in like a faction warfare, but you just have no insurance in the unsecure. Like that's a perfectly legit system, which
right. Yeah, it's being discussed right now, but there's talks of reverting back to before the whole repair system or like a hybrid, etc. There's a lot being discussed, but I'm sure we'll be able to find.
I think we want to keep timer insurance 100% for core systems. And I think we're also leaning towards policed systems having timer insurance. But unsecure, we are thinking it might be a better approach to make it like wild, where it's you lose your stuff, and that's just the reality. And I think the one where we're still indecisive is contested. I guess the reason why I can't come out today and say here is our concrete plan is because when it comes to contested space, there are still a couple of things that we could do. I want to give it a little bit more time and make sure that whatever we end up doing with contested space, I can come out in the next video that I post and say, here is the plan. But I think we are definitely confirmed 100%. We're going to be keeping timer insurance for core systems and policed systems. I think that's a good starting point when it comes to timer insurance. Unsecure, obviously, making that insurance none. I think that's a really good goal as well. I think that'll inject a hell of a lot of life into PvP.
And maybe like 50% of like the yield of a ship just gets dropped, which people can pick up.
I personally, I was a huge fan of paying partial resources to recover ships. I didn't think that was necessarily a bad thing. I think that could be something, and this is, I'm going to put a disclaimer on this. This is not confirmed. So please don't treat this like this is confirmed, guys. But my personal opinion is that in faction space, if we had it so you played Emperor, you're so funny. If we had it so that if you died and contested, maybe you have like an insurance plan by default through whichever faction you are registered with, and then you pay back a portion of resources to recover a ship. And then that way, if you're not part of any faction and you're going through contested, you don't have an insurance plan. That is where I lean. And that is me.
Okay, Tank Tiger. With regards to your question about whether short-term sinks are going to be healthy for the current economy, the answer is no, because there are already so many ways of obtaining resources just by a short-term fix isn't going to do anything with it. about a month or two, all these resources we've stockpiled is already just going to come back. It doesn't matter if you add player stations at ridiculous costs, because the form of obtaining resources easy to implement. Like if we just add like a random example, but if we add like cruisers or player stations, like the resources are going to be consumed, but they're going to be reobtained back in a month. So a short-term fix is rather pointless. We need to fix the long-term issues, and by fixing the long-term issues, we can then progress to the next problems we need to solve, or move on to next development things we want to do.
Yeah. To address that, I personally have also been advocating for temporary structures that would allow you to put in a resource sink, and then it doesn't last forever, because things like that can be very stimulating. But these kinds of things would be very focused, depending on what you're doing. Like if it's something faction warfare related, and you make like a deployable thing or whatever, like that could be a really good resource sink, especially if it expires over time. It's not like a full, obviously nothing is like a full-blown solution. A lot of these things work together to ultimately fix the economy. But I am in favor of having resource sinks for things that aren't necessarily long-term. And I will probably be able to talk more about that. If not a month from now, maybe a couple of months from now. It's just not our immediate, it's not an immediate solution that we can really implement at this time. The biggest thing for us will obviously be insurance. So I'm gonna say one last question, and I will pick my favorite question.
Oh dear.
Oh my god, not Red Nova Dragons, please. Answer is probably not.
Well, hold on. So one thing that I wanted to say, and this kind of relates to YouTube content. This is a little cheeky thing that I'll say, because it's okay for me to say it, because I organize the YouTube now. So these are leaks that I can make. I am personally in favor of maybe having videos that are actually like tournaments between factions, and then putting them on the Starscape YouTube channel, like 10v10s. Like,
wait, critique. Have you played
Don't make
tournament?
me run this. Don't look at me to run a tournament.
No, I'm not gonna do that to you. But yeah, that's like a fun little idea. So that could be good. That would be good for the YouTube channel.
Yeah, I've tried running a tournament on Starscape before. It's just
free play game.
Like every single time I try running a tournament, like something ends up ends up stretching for too long. It's really only me being able to properly like set it up. Like I want to be able to do it. It's just I can't do like a 32 player tournament as one person.
So sorry, just I'm gonna kind of wrap this up rather with Cord's question. I think that's a good, faction Olympics. I think Cord's question is a really good question. I wanted to take a moment to kind of like think about it. My vision for Starscape is a game that has at least, like, let's say my vision for 1.0. Let's say that what's my vision for 1.0? And this could be different from Kat's, I don't know, but my personal vision for 1.0 is a game that does a good job of balancing hardcore with also meaningful individual experiences that aren't necessarily tied to combat. Generally, just like making your character feel like a character that exists in a universe. I'm always a big fan of games that kind of transport you to another place, right? You want to feel like you're actually in a living, breathing galaxy. So for me, my ideal future for Starscape is a living, breathing galaxy, something that really feels authentic and lived in, more than anything, and just generally a really awesome, immersive PvP and lore-driven multiplayer experience. That is how I view the future, and hopefully that aligns with a lot of people's ideas of where they see it going. But yeah, that's my general answer to that. So I think that is a good place to end it for the chat questions. I just want to really quickly say to anyone who's going to be writing stories for this, if they need me to answer any questions, specifically ping me in the Citadel Link Discord server in some capacity, because that's where I'm more likely to see it, because my DMs at the moment are swamped. So if you try to reach me there, it'll probably be difficult for a little bit. But I'm going to open up the next 5 or so minutes to any of the people who are looking to write perspective stories. Tell me what you want to do, and if there's anything that I can clarify. And then once that's up, we'll say the next 10 minutes actually, because we're almost at 8 o'clock my time anyway. So yeah, anyone who is affiliated with Citadel Link or whatever, whether it's coordinator or even if there is someone from Stellar Community who wants to do something.
I don't think there's any staff from
hit me up.
Stellar. I think there's Moldy. I don't know if he works there.
Moldy's gone. He's not here.
I guess something telling me Moldy's Stellar.
Any perspective?
We've had someone.
Any prospective reporters want to ask any questions or anything like that, or?
If you have balancing concerns, feel free to.
I think Citadel Link has your perspective pretty good. We probably won't write an article on this, but we'll probably just post the video and maybe a general description of the things you went over.
Yeah, that's perfect. And as long as we can also, really hit home that a lot of these things aren't confirmed unless I specifically said that they were coming. But yeah, if you guys ever have follow-up questions about this that you want to ask, or if anything comes from it, my DMs will be open. Ping me in the Discord, whatever it works. But ultimately, thank you so much for having me. This was really productive. I think if we do one of these again, I might consider opening it up to the general community. I think this was a good place to start, though. What does everyone think of that? Should I do these more often? Should I do this in the general community more often?
I mean, a monthly thing we could do, but yeah, weekly Starscape server, but that may be a bit.
Well, we want to do a monthly podcast style thing where Keth, Dandy, and I talk about things, but I more or less mean a thing where I directly communicate with the server. I think because me being able to do this, and then we can bring on different panels for different facets of the community.
I think that could be a weekly thing. Probably in the main community, probably every single Saturday night or something.
Yeah, obviously I have my real life schedule. I have content schedules, but we can work something out. I definitely want to do this again.
I think it was really productive.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you guys think it was productive. I hope everyone felt like they were listened to. I feel like a lot of the concerns that were raised were extremely important, and it's good for us to have this perspective. I don't want to be the developer that's afraid of their own community. That is not a good place to be, and I don't think any of us truly are. I think we care, but the problem is that we aren't doing a good job of displaying it at all. So this is outreach. This is what outreach looks like.
Oh, I'm bringing over someone from Stellar real quick. They should get in here real quick.
Tell the general community you're doing it here so this place gets more activity. I mean, it's not necessarily just the Citadel thing. So it'll also be a Starscape main server thing in terms of the podcasts.
You know what? I'm gonna go ahead and I guess we can wrap this up. But yeah, thanks, Cord. This was awesome. I had a lot of fun. I genuinely had a hell of a good time. This was great. And thank you, chat. This was fantastic. Thank you for all your awesome questions. And I think most importantly, thank you for your brutal honesty, because I think that is most important. Critique needs to be critiqued, because if you're not critiquing the critique, then nothing is ever going to get accomplished, right?
I hate that one so much. I hate that.
All right. Well, thank you so much, guys. I'm going to go ahead and exit.
Thank you for
See ya.
too.
No, thank you. This has been
If you guys still have any questions, please fire them now. I'll be here for the next 5 minutes.
By the way, PSA, if you want to leave suggestions in the main Starscape Discord, I do bring pretty much a list of all the interesting ones up to critique every 1 or 2 days. And trust me, they are being written down somewhere. So
Dario, the bulwark has been. We're working on bulwark. We know the problem with the 75+ ability bulwarks. Don't worry. We're fixing the bulwark. just in need of publishing.
I don't know. I'm right now just really hope that my suggestion actually gets done and put in the game, because it would add a fuck ton of content.
Which one?
Seems interesting.
The one with player structures,
My
basically.
favorite thing to do in Starscape: collecting my members' quotas and enslaving them. Is this recorded?
I could maybe cut that out for 500,000 credits, but
500,000 credits, scammer.
Well, how have you bribed me to cut stuff?
What do you think about? I have a question for you. What do you think about making like burner a default ability for every ship?
This is a really controversial question, Rack.
Okay, personally, I'm presenting the argument that it should, because I feel like light burners would create if you make it like a much shorter cooldown, and you make it like a ability where you could
sort of thing, right?
Tactical sort of thing, where like everyone can light burn, and maybe you can augment that with like rigs and such. My idea would be I would think that would make combat a lot more unique. It'll help solve the issue of just the current issue where it's just two people sitting at range, and depending on what range you're sitting at, like you're fucked if depending on the weapons you use. Making it a lot more like flexible, where like the distance between you and the enemy is changing constantly, would help. It would help balance all sorts of weapons better than we can just tinkering with their stats.
I do suppose having a built-in light burner makes sense in terms of lore. That is something everyone is going to have to discuss about. I have no authority to say anything about it, and I don't want to come under fire, but I'll give it some thought.
You're being
in terms of every ship having light burner.
I'm surprised we didn't talk more about PvP and like fixing warp disruption or anything.
He said he doesn't necessarily deal with balance. So
yeah, okay. PvP and warp disruption, we're probably gonna change some energy related stuff.
Type Blue has some really good suggestions for
tying it to he described it as like warp strength. If like you can warp, if your ship has a lot of warp strength, it can like warp out of a warp disruption beam, depending on like the strength of the warp disruption beam.
That sounds pretty interesting, because that would add in like if you had a battle, like let's say for later, if you had a battleship, you're not going to be like stuck there by one paragon.
Exactly.
Make the warp disruptor use less energy. We made the warp disruptor use that much energy, especially on fighters, because it doesn't make sense to have a fighter disrupt a destroyer in wild with just one fighter. It doesn't make sense, right?
Or generally just like
tiny ass thing is gonna disrupt the destroyer.
The other way I saw it described as you should tie it instead to just like energy use. So like ships with a larger warp strength have a much higher energy use.
Okay,
require like a lot more. It'll have a lot more energy to actually warp disruption.
Yeah. Okay. So our solutions to that is either use more energy, or we're going to implement warp disruption field strength. This is not confirmed. Don't quote me on that. But
like that'll be also like a fun idea too. Like you increase your warp disruption power. Or sorry, your warp like power to be able to break out of warp disruption. Yeah. Maybe like it takes time to power like that.
Yeah. So warp disruption strength is going to affect the amount of time it takes for you to charge your warp. So, for instance, like a destroyer disrupting a fighter, it can take 5 or 10 minutes to warp away. Just thinking about it, but it'll make more sense for fighters to have either more fighters to help disrupt or something like that. Plus, I mean, if we implement warp disruption strength, then we're going to be probably removing warp logging as well, because it doesn't make sense to have warp logging and disruption field strength.
Yeah,
it's not confirmed again. Don't quote me on that. I don't want any articles saying has Rock confirmed the removal of warp logging. I don't want to get fired from the dev team.
Soon.
Has Rock confirmed? So we're warp disruption. Warp disruption is being removed.
There's also been
a technical challenge rather than an actual balance.
That as well.
Tries it things up.
Yeah. Because the problem with removing warp logging is that it there's a possibility of duping shit. It's just not a good idea whatsoever. So we'll see what we can do in terms of the platform and the game itself.
We fixed warp disruption, but at what cost?
At what cost? We get 50 million extra core light in the market. Oh yeah.
Someone just dumps like 5,000 fucking bulwarks on the market.
What was the problem with the bulwark? Because I joined a bit late. So.
Yeah, the bulwark agility thing we didn't fix.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure most warships in general just have insanely stupid agility. Like they're fairly similar to what they were before,